is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight, and we talk about guns for an hour. So it is episode 1200 something, and let's see, it's episode 1255. So we've been doing the show for about 1200 episodes, and at this point, it is a conversation. We're taking the conversation to the next level. We're sick of the same old cycles, which create a mechanism which is just boring and can be used against us. So we've got a couple of things going on tonight that'll make this show potentially pretty fun. And then we'll talk about, to begin with, the description of the video. It has some tonight's workload. What's going on over here? Got distracted there. So we're looking at the description of the video. We got a couple of things I've been watching today. Let's see. We got the weekly bullet, which was the weekly bullet. Yeah. So that was the interview with Boyd from. There. So that was with Boyd, who was the rep or the president now, I don't know what he is, of the JPFO. And then they chatted a bit, and I don't know who else was in there. They do an attempt to read the side chats and everything, and then they, I don't know, they just got distracted. And since this is the first time they've come back since before Christmas, oh, that's a bad picture, Cheryl. So that's the first time they came back before Christmas. Or the first one they've done since Christmas, and lots of stuff going on. So I don't know. I think everybody was kind of distracted with the whatever was coming in, and so I posted some stuff about asking them at first not to address those questions, but they're not really reading the questions or being able to absorb them as they're coming in. They're not that fluent with live stuff yet. So I think they got distracted a little bit. So that's one of the things we can talk about tonight, is not so much the situation, because that is what it is. You had to be there to see it. But the concept of when is it appropriate to stop educating and start motivating or orchestrating. Let's see, then we got the federal gun bills. So Jared posted a thing here that had links to a whole bunch of different stuff. So Congress Bill 30, 121, 127, 130, and 167. So we got one good one in there, the Hearing Protection Act. I won't even bother linking to that one. Well, I guess I could do. But then we'll steal all those from Jared's. He's linked to the thing. He did what? I think it was like 20 minutes on it. I listened to most of it until he got to the end, and then I quit listening. So the 30 is the kind of general increase the public safety by punishing and deterring firearms trafficking. There's nothing in it. So it doesn't exist technically. It's just sort of a placeholder, I guess, what they call this. And then you've got a whole bunch of them from Sheila Jackson Lee, and hers are the they want to hire 200 ATF agents to enforce gun laws. So that's 4 more per state, and then to amend Title 18 of the U.S. State Code to provide 7-day waiting period before a semi-automatic firearm with silencer, armor-piercing ammunition, or a large-capacity ammunition magazine may be transferred. To provide for the licensing of a firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms, and to prohibit the possession of certain ammunition. So these are all separate things that, I mean, she probably has obviously on a shelf someplace that she brings up occasionally, or I don't know, I haven't tracked what her bills are. Then we got one that's called 130 to require the safe storage of firearms and ammunition and to require the investigation of reports of improper storage of firearms or ammunition. Nice. So store guns and ammunition and tell on people who don't store their guns good. Then we got HR 167 to prohibit the transfer of a firearm at a gun show by a person who's not an FFL dealer. And then this last one was by somebody else, Jeff Duncan. I don't know, this one was the Hearing Protection Act. So this is the good one. And then, yeah, that was all of them. So is this one not from her? Yeah, that was, I missed one. This one is, this one's from Al Green, the gun show one. So basically we've got a bunch of them that are, getting queued up, and obviously you can address each one or whatever. You can spend a bunch of time. At the same time, we have to figure out ways to deal with, at this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 volleys. So if you've ever been under mortar fire or seen a movie or whatever where there's mortar fire, you can talk about each mortar that hits the ground, but since you don't get to control the frequency or the duration of the attack, in this conversation, we won't talk about each grenade that hits the ground. Instead, we'll talk about how to deal with and how to approach the future, knowing that we're going to have multiple grenades going off, and some of them are going to explode more than likely, and some of them aren't, and how we're going to deal with the triage, because that's all I'm interested in talking about as far as that stuff goes. And then we got the Patreons. So over on Patreon today, we did a deal where if the Patreons wanted to, they could say they were in, and then we would pick some days during this show sometime, somebody to grab another set of those. They're the 2A patch batches, but they're from both last year, well, from 2020 and 2019 at this point. And it looks like we have just 13. So I don't know who all, you don't have to be awake to win or whatever. It's not really winning, but you don't have to be awake to get yourself picked. But if anybody out there is a Patreon and you want to jump in on that, just go over there to Patreon and you'll see it. All right. So let's see if we got any comments coming in. Yeah, that is welcome back 9mm. I don't think I can pause on that thing. So that was welcome back 9mm, which was a story from the 70s where 9mm comes back and teaches a bunch of inner city kids life lessons. Is this show in my honor? You're probably saying that because you think the show is about you because it has California on here.
And for all of you out there on behind the
Oh, wait, look at right here. This is kind of hard-hitting stuff that we take care of. Oh, I guess, yeah, you can just watch it over again. These all last for about 2 seconds. There's a lot of band action. You can see a lot of band action in this show. Chocolate spooning. That happens. Beach yoga. Cat antics. Communism. We fight communism. We have to have obligatory bacon or else Woods gets really weird. Like if we don't have bacon in there. So there you go. That's welcome back 9mm. So 9mm came back and taught these inner city kids life lessons. It was a pretty special show. And then of course more bacon and whatever. And I guess that's it. So we'll throw a link out there if anybody wants to chat about these topics, and let's chat about them. If you'd rather other topics, then we can bring them to the table and see. But, the real deal is that there's no point in just repeating the same old stuff. We become boring, and we're just manipulated by the other side that has seen this game before also. And this show is about the conversation of guns and evolving it. So jump in if you want. Otherwise, we can have a short show. We had a long ass show yesterday. It means I don't even have to have a show today if I didn't want to. What's all this about? Don't do weird names when you come in here. Do your weird chat names. What's up with that?
Did I not change it back from last night?
No idea. Oh, is that from in here? Did these names stick with you from only in my chat, or is that every time you go into stream?
Every time you go into StreamYard, unless
so if you guys are being yahoos in somebody else's chat and making your names all some kind of practical jokes that have nothing to do with in here, like this blue bobcat, and you're pointing your finger over to the right.
Yep, because I was next to Pink Panther last night.
Oh, I see. Exactly. So that's going to stick with you until you change it? Is that how that works? I don't know. I don't go to the antics, so I don't know how that works.
I'm going to get ready to change it now, although you do have the power to change anybody's name in the chat at any time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't wield that power on people. All right, well, you guys jump in.
So if you want to say something like not 2A and us or like A-, you can just change their name to A-.
Yeah. So you guys got anything to talk about tonight? Chat about? See if anybody else is going to jump in here. I've got 9 people watching. For some reason, it wasn't telling me how many people were waiting. Or maybe there was nobody waiting. I don't know how many people out there are Patreons. I don't know. I guess I don't know how long the show is going to be, so I don't know how long to wait for Patreons to do something. So what I'll do is post something over on the Patreon while we're chatting here. And if you're out there and you're a Patreon and you need a second to go to do the thing, then let us know. Otherwise, do you guys got any topics to chat about? So anybody out there got fingers to type chat or topics?
I think we need to clear up what this chocolate spooning thing is. What is that?
So you take a piece of cookie and you put chocolate on it. When you stick it into a piece of coffee or hot chocolate, it starts to melt.
Ah. Right on. Barbecue, did you know that you were homework for DGS tonight?
Awesome. Let's say, what's up?
I was going to say, roll that beautiful patch footage.
Heck yeah. Let's say, yeah. How sooner is the homework getting posted? Because
like
I never
before the show. Just because it doesn't make sense in your timeline doesn't mean you can't watch hours worth of video before the show. You could also anticipate, right? If you were super 2A, you would know what's coming. Like, what the hell? I don't watch the Daily Bullet every day, and you're there half the time anyway.
Yep.
It's a cooking show now. Where's that coming from?
And if nothing else, you can always, whenever the chat posts for the day, check the assignment board and look for revisions like today's sometime before the show kicks.
I just didn't realize.
Hell, is this some kind of game, or are we going to have a conversation about guns? 14 minutes in, somebody's like, "Oh, this sounds like they're actually going to have a conversation," and then we're fucking talking about pen and whatever crap we're talking about. Let's try to have a good conversation at the beginning, leave the crap for the end if we're going to have it.
Heck yeah. So you wanted to talk about the weekly bullet.
Okay. That's good. So we're talking an hour-long show from the Second Amendment Foundation. Go.
Well, you said they were getting distracted with the comments today?
Yeah, I'm never, ever distracted by comments, so I can't deal with that. I don't understand why people would ever be distracted by comments. No, they were, yeah. Were you in there or you weren't in there?
No, I was in there. Is it just me, or does Paul seem to get caught up with those quite a bit?
He's learning. I mean, what the hell? Everybody gets caught up in him, but yeah, I mean, he definitely, and everybody really. I guess he is the one that's in trouble because, or the one to blame because he's the one that throws them out to everybody. And what are you going to do when you're a guest? The host threw a question out at you, right? You got to kind of address it. That's the whole point, right? But yeah, I don't think anybody in there's because they do shows, but they do regular videos, right? So all they get is comments at their leisure after the fact, right? And that's a different kind of comment when somebody's going to come along after the fact and leave a permanent comment that you have time to write out and think, and you've seen the whole presentation more than likely, and now you're going back and writing a comment on a specific point versus you've seen the mess that live comments are, or they're just non-existent like tonight's. So yeah, they're. I don't think they're very practiced, and they're probably trying to just be polite, I guess. What do you think? I mean, is it distracting, or am I crazy? Or am I asking too much out of them?
I don't know. It seems like Paul picks things that kind of strike his nerve, and they go off on a tangent with him. But otherwise, like he'll pick out random things like, oh, this person said this, and they might make a quick comment, but just seems like there's some things that kind of strike a nerve with Paul, and he just goes off on a tangent and loses focus of where the show was.
Definitely. I mean, that's what happens to all of us. But he's definitely well, he's doing it with the Second Amendment Foundation. I think that's the thing. He's got the weekly show that the Second Amendment Foundation does live, and he's learning that, or he's not realizing he's getting sidetracked. So do you think those people were there intentionally, or do you think those people were just like their first day at the rodeo and that's their first questions to ask on their first live stream?
I honestly don't know, and I'm kind of curious if they were on the YouTube side or Facebook side.
Well, they were on the Facebook side. Well, so DJ was in there. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm just antsy because I wanted, I was really hoping that they were going to dig in, especially since they've been really pushing the two-way responder thing, and well, the two-way gaming thing. I don't know if they've been pushing it or else it just got pushed in front of me. But either way, the two-way gaming thing is a thing. So they came in and just started going straight to. It did distract me. I looked over there and seen that green thing come up. It was teal. I was like, what the hell is that teal thing come up? But they just started talking about what the hell were they even talking about? It was something like, oh, Democrats can be gun owners too, or something like, what the hell? Like, come on, really? With all this stuff happening, the Second Amendment Foundation is going to give us some explanation of whatever they were asking about, like if Republicans are pro-gun or something. Anyway, without picking it apart, because none of us, I guess, were there, it was just, to me, it seemed like a very obvious, distracting, derailed type of comment that I'm not saying I'm some kind of superhero or nothing, but I think that most of us would either just have more comments or ignore it because it's not on topic. But like I say, I could also just be antsy because I'm sick of them crawling when we need them to be running. Actually, at this point, I think that was my comments were more to the point of, is the Second Amendment Foundation's goal going to be leadership in this whole situation coming forth, or are you just going to report what's going on? And I don't know if that's the way to get through to them or not, but I don't have any kind of other thing to do except comment, right? So is anybody else in here tonight? Is DJ in here? He was here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ever present.
Yeah, so what did you think? Was that an intentional thing? Was it just somebody whose first day at the rodeo and they were asking a new question or that person was asking a new question and then they decided to just be cordial or whatever or polite and start asking this basic question? Or am I crazy and it wasn't even a basic question?
No, I think it was there. I don't think that the asking itself was. I don't think there was anything disingenuous going on. Can't assign them immediately to the newbie ranks because it didn't move off of anything other than the initial. But yeah, I mean, being a pro means you can take that kind of stuff in stride. Just like you said, you can take lots of comments and whatever. Paul seems to find the need to step out of his official role and say, well, I'm just speaking as Paul Lathrop right now when I say this. And it's like, okay, man, I guess, but are you really here to editorialize or are you here to host? So hosts know how to slide from one thing to the next and not get bogged. And yeah, I mean, it's growing pains. I'm glad they're there. It
Yeah.
didn't distract me that much.
Well, okay, so and that's the thing. Like I say, I'm definitely like sick of waiting for these people. Like, I've been waiting around for these people, specifically Paul and the people from Plate Society, to get up, start using these texts, because now when we need them, they're sitting there like getting distracted by questions. And it wasn't like, anyway, it was just basic questions. So I'm not even sure. Maybe it was just somebody so new, but I still would then place the blame back on Paul for like addressing a basic ass question when he knows that it's a super whatever.
Yeah, I actually did pop over to the other side and catch it from the Facebook end there towards the last half an hour to see what it was that was so fascinating with their comments versus the ones that were happening, on our side. And you and Clover consistently throwing great stuff out there, and things that really deserve to be directly addressed. I I can't say that. I'm not sure why that wasn't done.
Because they don't have all the time in the world. They wanted to make it a half an hour show, and they're there to present and then address or maybe highlight comments and maybe have a one or two to address a side topic or some elaborate on something based on a comment. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, and that's without harping on them, because what the hell, we got what we got. They're the people that are on the Second Amendment Foundation, and like you say, they're doing it, which is better than, well, actually all of them. They were the last ones to the table. So all the big three-letter organizations are doing it now. Daily podcast of some sort, if you count Crump and you count Coffee with Craig or whatever it is. So if we get aside from their like specifics, although I'm going to hit on Makojo's specific there because that sounds like somebody's being mean to Cheryl. But is it appropriate? Or wait, what the hell's the word? Number one, is it the right time? I don't know if anybody else is out there. I don't like just pondering shit because it's boring. I like to have somebody to talk to besides DJ and Barbecue all the time. Because while they may have been in this chat, I don't think these guys have been around long enough to know the personalities of like Paul or Dave from Lawyers and Money. The people that are basically sitting in the positions in chairs instead of standing in the positions like an air traffic controller, like somebody in what's that called? The tower, with binoculars. I kind of think three-letter organizations, because FPC takes that role. Does anybody have any doubt that if you had a question about something and you asked FPC, the person you talked to would either know the answer or go, let me get XYZ over here because he's the person or she's the person that knows that answer, right?
Yeah,
like
no reason about that.
You're following tons of shit and instigating stuff like starting lawsuits and championing shit, right? Come from California, so they're born in the fight, right? They're fighters and they're doing it. So gun owners is all over the damn place. I can't tell what gun owners is doing. And like say, Second Amendment Foundation is just now coming to it. So if it's the case, if they're supposed to be leadership, if they're supposed to be not even leadership, maybe that's a shitty word. I don't like it because I don't like to be led either. But if they're supposed to be air traffic control, if we need somebody to fucking NORAD, aren't they supposed to be that? Aren't they supposed to be in the big ass slow moving things that can see from a view? And what part of like NORAD is like, hey guys, welcome to your M16. Let's show you how to load it. Like, I shouldn't have used a good analogy, but hey, welcome to the internet. Let's tell you how to start a YouTube channel. Like, nah, we already know how to do everything and we've been in the fight longer than you. So how about you do some air traffic control? I guess that's what I was trying to get across to them. And obviously it was bad decision. I started it and then I tried to elaborate and then it became a rant. So I should have just quit while I was ahead. But
I don't know. I think yours was a necessary voice, and I think it was welcome.
Yeah, but
for
they don't read
people.
Yeah, but they don't read it, and it just distracted them. So I effectively did what I was complaining about that other person doing. I just slowed them down, and stopped them from doing what they were doing. However, I'm pretty sure all they were going to do is witness what we just fucking seen, except like a week later, because this is they're not even going to talk about barely the braces. a week after it happened and the consequences and significance. It'd be great to see some insight, right, from a national level organization. But I'm not going to task Paul with that. He's just doing the podcast or whatever. But still, I'm like frustrated. That's the second question. So if their job is to be leadership, is it wrong to expect them to start doing that, like to be air traffic control and not like information booth or not like basic 101 instructor? Like, leave all that. I was trying to tell them, like, quit telling these people whatever. You're good at it and you fall into that mode easily because it's comfortable. You've done it a million times, but you've already done it a million times. Expect them to go figure it out and talk to the people who know all that shit already. I was trying to tell them, like, the people that are showing up to the Second Amendment Foundation podcast live, we don't need to be explained what's bad out there. We don't need to know the history of shit. We just need to start having somebody run air traffic control. I didn't say it that quickly though. Anyway,
No, but
is it time for them to be doing that, or they get to do whatever they want because it's their business?
It can be really hard to find your audience when you're not even sure what your audience should be. And I think where they're stuck kind of right now is thinking they are something that they aren't to people that they're not even sure they're clear on.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to explain it.
Yeah, sometimes when you can have all the formatting you want, you can have all the recognizable features of an average broadcast, but when you're seeking an audience and it's just not there, and then to have that much sourced from the Facebook side, it was lopsided, sure, because there were 50 something on the Facebook side, and that was actually kind of surprising to me, but it did seem like, there were good questions coming out of the Facebook side. But why not? Yeah, there were obviously some, and I didn't recognize a lot of the names on the other end, but I'm not used to their handles and screen names either. But certainly half a dozen people.
You can't even have a screen name on there, can you? You have to have just your name on Facebook, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can make your name whatever you want on Facebook. So
what?
You can make your name whatever you want on Facebook. I mean, if you want to be Joe Blow Fart Sniffer, you can be Joe Blow Fart Sniffer.
Oh, I thought they made it where you couldn't use just regular names. I thought you had to be an actual person now. I thought that was a long time ago, so I don't go over that.
Oh, maybe that changed. I don't know.
I don't go over that. All right, so then, like I say, I'm just mopey and expecting a lot out of them. I want them to get up and start running and then carrying more than other people because they are better than us, and dragging people, right? And somehow doing some kind of air traffic control for the choppers that are coming in, and at the same time, motivating people at the back. Oh, got distracted by a comment. No, so Trucker did throw in $5 before. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. I never really pay attention I don't get super chats that often. Probably got $20 worth of super chats, or maybe more than that. But I don't remember if I don't know if they all go into one pile or if this is a separate pile over here.
Well, and suffice it to say, G, there were definitely some questions that begged to be answered. And even to the point where you said, Paul, do you read these comments after? I hope you get a response to that.
I left that for him after. So if he does go back and read them after, he can answer it later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and as well he should, because he's the Minister, Deputy Defense Director of Propaganda or whatever for 2AF. It's like, bro, you need to be on your game a little bit tighter. And I really wish he'd throw some acoustical tiles in his studio room, because the audio quality coming out of that room with all that harsh surfaces are really painful sometimes. Just nitpicking though.
Yeah, he seems to pick up tech stuff pretty quick. So I would normally say, like, who cares? But yeah, that's probably something he can pick up and address pretty quickly, because he seems pretty capable when he's, but I have no idea. That's the thing is, I have no idea what all he's doing. So, we know what we expect out of him, and we know what he presents, but I don't know what all he's juggling. So I don't want to, I'm going to still bitch, but I'm not going to hold nothing against him. Like you say, at least they're doing it. Oh, look who showed up over here. He was out there. So I don't know, Clover, if, well, much of that you heard or what. Super chats are just added to your revenue and paid out at the same time. Yeah, but I'm saying, I guess I was saying, I don't know if they go in a separate pile to the Daily Gun Show channel and then a separate pile to my other channel, because I get super chats to that channel. Actually, no, I usually get the super chats over here. I don't even know. You don't get paid by YouTube right away, so it's not like, and then you just get one check. So I have to go look all the time to see what all that is. And that's the thing. You're saying that he should go back and look at the comments. It's easier said than done. Like I got a billion other things I would prioritize over going to see where my super chats go. I remember when they first started being a thing, we looked at it and we paid more attention because we were trying to figure out how much percentage they were taking and stuff like that. And once we figured out that they take 30%, that's, it was like, oh, okay. It's not something that I'm going to run around encourage, and I'm not going to ask people to give YouTube whatever that was, $5, so $1.50. No, yeah, something like that. So anyway, I was not sure what all Clover heard, but we were talking about the weekly bullet, and it was fairly obvious. We're not going to talk about the specifics necessarily all over again, but it was fairly obvious that Paul wasn't able to keep up with. He was trying to highlight the comments, but I don't know if he was necessarily reading them. And the couple that he did address were bugging me because it seemed like a distraction. So I'm asking Clover if he's out there to type, or if what he wants some jumping, he can. If it seemed like an intentional distraction, or if it was just they're trying to be kind or whatever, try to address a very new type of question, or a simple question from a new person. Anyway, then anybody, well, I guess Barbecue was doing the cyber unboxing thing. I posted that in here because I appreciate your putting the effort into posting those, and that you bought all that crap. So I was going to say, though, that you must have filmed that when you got them, right? Because you've got way more than that now, right?
A few more. There's a couple that you sent me for Free Patch Friday and stuff. So
never know when you keep them or when you're giving them to your kids or whatever either.
What was that? Your mic did that weird thing.
Oh, I was saying I don't never know when I send them to you when you keep them and when you give them to your kids either.
Depends on if I have duplicates, things like that.
No, so I put a link on there, and then we got a bunch of those anti-bills. So, I can play the video. The anti-bills are there, and I was saying instead of necessarily addressing each one, we might talk about how we can juggle or multitask, or whatever the word is, how we get used to the onslaught instead of is that working? Yeah. Instead of worrying about every single blow that gets struck or punch that lands. So you're saying stuff here, but that worked out pretty good. I never think about how people are going to do stuff with them or display them or what, because everybody's kind of so much, so different and so varied. But that worked out pretty good. So in the future, might be able to do more of these, hopefully.
Oh, hell yeah.
Let's see. They're following on Facebook as old people. Not really that 2A either. More old, conversative geezers. I could imagine because what are they? Blog readers. So I try every once in a while. Where do I get blogs from? Well, often from there, and then from LinkedIn. Sometimes if I go look at LinkedIn, 3/4 of the time it's a blog that somebody's linking to, and I try to look at blogs, but the fucking ads drive me nuts, and often they're just repeating something that somebody in a video already talked about, or somebody like Matt brought up, and then a whole bunch of people talked about it. Oh, I'm still watching the video and I'm not screen sharing. I should be distracted. They get weird questions over there. The crowd is not nearly as hip as we think as YouTube. And maybe I need to call my jets on that too. And I know that they're not up on it either. Like I keep saying, I wish they were quicker. Is there anybody else going to say anything? Like I keep ranting and not giving you guys a chance to talk. Is there anything to chat about besides all that? Is that a puppy or an old dog?
No, he's about a 150-pound 9-year-old Mastiff, and he wants a ton of attention right now. So I'm trying to wrestle him away and hit my mute button and all that fun jazz so I can talk. And he's just being a big old lap dog right now.
Yeah. So grab him by the wherever you go around, and grab him like around the neck, but then between the front legs, right? And then you can yank on him, and then you can twist him over, and then you get a good belly, well, side belly rub. He's a boy dog.
Yeah, he's a chunk.
The bigger they are, the more rough you can be with them. Mm-hmm. Wrestle them more.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, let's say especially with him because he likes to wrestle. But one of the things I did like in the Daily Bullet today was they had mentioned, taking action, calling up your Democratic representatives and saying, hey, prove to me that you're going to vote the way that I would like you to, and, you'll have my vote come primaries, which is something I said earlier this week on DGS. Although I'm not sure if I completely agree with the tactic they went with of threatening the Democratic representatives by saying, and if you don't, I'm going to make sure that, you're not reelected and all that. Now, granted, if, you called them up, said, hey, this is the way I would like to see you vote. These are the matters that are important to me. And if you vote this way, when primaries roll around, I'll remember that and you'll have my vote. Then, if one or two of these bills came up and they didn't vote the way you wanted, then I think I would pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what? I gave you a chance and you blew it. And then ensue with that threat of making sure that whoever runs against them, gets your donations and your vote and your lobbying and support.
I hear you. It's going to be different for each person, right? Like each representative is going to have a different opinion, outlook for each bill, and each scenario is going to take place in a different timeline. So I think one thing we could do is get some sort of a snapshot, like we've always depended, or I guess just I don't want to say even relied. We've settled for when the NRA gives us their little report cards for voting or whatever. Or maybe some of the other organizations, put more effort into it and give us some sort of a ranking or some kind of a grading system. It's not that difficult to have, especially with collaborative effort, some sort of Yelp system for people to keep track of, where they're at and who needs nudges for what, and help keep track of these. Because obviously it's going to be time to hold feet to the fire and to remember. But yeah, like you're saying, let them vote once and then get what do they vote once on? We don't want to vote on anything, right? I think it's I don't know if there's, and that's the other thing is that since there's different strategies, maybe having some sort of little crib notes or whatever that's called, like this person likes candy, this person responds to threats, or this person doesn't like threats, and don't give this person anything, like they'll take a mile. and just some sort of little notes so we know when we're sending things, hey, and let this person know you remember this, or because they did this and we appreciate it, you hope they'll vote this way again, so that we can make them as effective as possible. Obviously, it's going to also require some sort of effort to keep people with the resolve to do it, because I think the tendency is going to be to go, oh, it's too much, or not going to work, or too tough of a hill to climb, or my voice doesn't matter, right? Like, oh, another one went off and they didn't listen to us this time. Without getting into too many specifics, so we can keep the conversation going. Alan Anchor jumped in. Thanks for jumping in.
Ahoy.
Do you have anything when I was out there challenging and threatening? Any responses to any of that stuff, or anything else to bring up?
No.
Right on. Let's see. So Clover's out there. I think he hasn't said anything else. Then we had you saying the taco ones, and then I thought I saw Ursula say something earlier. I thought Facebook died already. Parlor went down for a little while today. Oh, did we talk about the fear one? Somebody was being mean to Cheryl Todd on there, or like what I did? Because I kind of did the same thing. I was like, OMG, fear. No, we have like an opportunity. Like I went off on, trying to say we have the potential to really push here. We could, instead of just saying shitty, but I didn't see that comment. That must have been on the Facebook side.
I didn't catch that on that side. I wasn't looking real hard at what happened earlier.
And I don't know. And like I say, the other problem with trying to offer input via comments in a live conversation, even if they were super confident like us and were able to deal with like 6 different ways of multitasking and understand sarcasm and everything, like it'd still be tough to offer insight beyond the conversation in text chat. Like it's probably more appropriate to wrote some of that stuff in an email and then sent it after with some timestamps or something. And when you said this during the show, I had this comment about, the way you do it. Because the thing is, there's no way I can read those comments. I can barely squint and see when he sends those comments across the size of the screen and everything that I'm watching it on. I can tell when he's sending a comment, but luckily he reads most of them, right?
I have a gun thing to discuss.
Okay.
Did you see that letter that some ammo dealers sent out about the increase to ammo prices?
No, is this like a recent thing or a while back?
I guess it was recent. I was trying to see if I had it somewhere, but I guess most ammo, like they're saying, just so like who the stores buy it from, they're charging them more money because everything. So
the distributors jacking prices on them? Is that what
I
they're saying?
heard that somewhere. Somebody was live and mentioned something like that. So that could be they were referencing that.
yeah, so the whole ammo's going down in price, it's definitely not.
Well, maybe not on that front, but I'm still seeing trendings that have stuff more consistently in stock and with some price drops on even some of the calibers we're expecting to have higher price tags associated with them. I mean, we might be looking at steel case options, but to see 7639 in and without huge limits, at least people aren't crying about spending twice that like they were just a couple of weeks back. So who knows? Try to be optimistic. It'd be nice to get out to the range again consistently.
Would be.
When was the last time you went out, Angelina?
Tuesday, I think.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
What'd you take with you?
Just a Glock 19 because I was shooting everyone else's stuff.
Oh, straight. That's a good way to go.
That's
So
the
what's
only
it like? What are like lane rentals in that where you are in LA?
I'd say like $20, not unlimited, but like $20 an hour is probably standard.
Oh, that's like par for here. What about you guys in other locales? Barbecue, what do you throw down in Pennsylvania?
There's only one indoor range near me, so
Huh.
if you're gonna go rent lane there, I think it's about $20 for an hour. It might be $20 for 30 minutes though. It's been forever since I've been there, so I can't remember which it is. But then all the outdoor ranges are about $25 a year.
Right on. What about you? Do you do any indoor shooting?
No, we have a couple of ranges here. I have no idea what they cost to be a member. It's probably like $60 or something. And then we have outdoor ranges, and they're probably like same. I don't know. It's been a long time. We have too much desert here to pay.
Yeah.
So, anybody heard of this Got Your Six? That's been distracting me because I think I've heard of that, but I can't remember who I heard talking about it. It's some sort of app.
What's it called now?
I think Crump was pushing it before.
Oh. So it's not like
Or no, I lie. It wasn't.
Parlor?
It might have been a different channel that I'm thinking of now. It might not have been Crump, but I've heard of it, but I've not looked into it.
I guess I was thinking of it when he said the Got Your Six app. I thought that was like a another paid parlor, but the way he's just describing it. I think it's a viable solution to red flag laws. So I guess it's some sort of way to let people know. It's like a home. What the hell is that thing called? That home hair, or the home care old people button. For falling, I can't get up. Button
Life alert.
for owners. Yeah. See, so what are they going to do? Run away, run over? I mean, I don't have a problem with ideas and coming up with stuff. I just don't know the details on it. But yeah, see, that's the problem. I don't know. We've had conversations in the past on how to have a conversation. I think now we need to figure out how to deal with triage or how to deal with, on incoming fire or something like, because I don't know. We're going to need to hone our skills or our focus on what we're paying attention to not get distracted and use the kind of tools like that. Because I don't know. Did anybody? There's nothing been like this before, so it's hard to say. But with all the posts going up about Twitter and not Twitter page, what's the name of that thing? Parlor going down. I don't use it enough to even remember the damn name. Going down, and then all the reposts on Twitter showing the page being not working or whatever. That's I don't want to say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's a new platform with a ton of people using it. And in the same day, there's a ton of people. I don't know if you saw it, but a ton of people I'm watching on Instagram, at least, were posting the not necessarily the I'm leaving, but I'm over on Parlor. Another slew of the I'm on Parlor links, but then also, since we're being run off of here, I'm going over to Parlor. So if there's a whole slew of people jumping on, and there's all the people that are recently there chatting with each other, using it exclusively, it makes sense that they're going to bog. And if the reaction is, oh, they took it from us, oh, they are out to get us, and this was another angle, and then that goes around, when are we going to figure out when the sky's falling and when to wait a minute and verify? Is that something that happens, or is that something that we wait for? Or is that something that we hope happens?
So What's okay? So is Parler like taken away? I thought that Apple and the Android thing are just trying to get him out of the App Store, which I mean effectively like gets rid of you.
Oh, well, no, that's one element of what happened today, but also it wasn't working. So, like, whenever people were telling us that it wasn't on Apple, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's frustrating because I'm pretty sure that's all you can do. You can't go to like somewhere and download it, right? It has to be in the Apple Store,
Yeah.
at least to install it as an app, I think. Or maybe it's a can possibly, but most Apple people are so used to going to the store, it's effectively not there if they don't, or it's not effectively not able to use it if it's not there for them. So anyway, when I heard of all that, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." But then people started posting the pictures of like a dead screen, like, "Oh, Parlor's down," and they took it down and shit. And I don't know. I happened to be in front of the computer later, and I thought, "Oh, I'm gonna check my Parlor," and it took forever. It like really, really took forever to load, but it was there. It was just. I mean, I'm no expert. It just was taking forever to load, and I'm thinking, okay, where all the stuff I just said, it's busy, it's clogged, and it just took a while to load. Let it refresh a few times, and then it's been working fine the rest of the day. So more than likely, it is off the shelf software, and it's more than likely sitting on kind of some kind of Amazon server or something that they just had to call over in the morning and go, oh, we need more coal on the fire, and then they paid for more. But it's actually hanging right now. So, oh, and then I got a thing saying we apologize. There was an issue fetching the feed. So to me, that tells me the server's struggling and getting a lot of requests, but somebody else might read that and go, they're coming to get us, and everything in between, right? And now I refreshed and it popped right up.
Right.
So here, I popped right up and I get the first one is Parler is getting attacked now by Google. And no, actually pretty decent. I mean, very similar to my Instagram feed, only way more words. Way more words. Like only out of like 1, 2, 3 out of 10 have a picture.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of reading. Well, so like also today Twitter has permanently banned Trump.
I heard about that today or yesterday. I heard something. I didn't remember when, but I definitely heard that.
Yeah, they
and then
suspended his account.
Somebody posted that he got back on with a different name or something.
No doubt.
Oh, did he?
I mean, I don't know. Somebody posted that. I can't tell anymore if somebody's being a joke or if it's like for real. I mean, I'm only watching. I'm not like trying to get invested in it, so I really don't know. I mean, it's the middle of the stuff happening, and everybody is going to start beating their chest because they're just getting their, whatever their, what's the word? They're figuring out their feeding order. As the new administration starts getting in and sitting down, they're going to start figuring out who's the boss of who and everything, and then it's going to turn into a massive cluster. Hopefully, I guess it's possible that it's super orchestrated. Maybe later in this chat, or if Dead Horse has a chat or something, and after chat, we could get into like the permeations of like, if this is all a massive design plot against us or whatever. But assuming that it's just an eventuality of a bunch of shit that happened, and it all fell the wrong way, like will happen sometimes, and they, like I say, they all jockey for position. Maybe that's what I was looking for. Oh shit, is that racist? I don't think that's racist. Jockeys aren't racist, are they?
Just vertically challenged.
Okay. So if they jockey for position and then, like I say, just gridlock, like, because basically, I was listening to NPR the other day, and it would be funny if it wasn't like our kids' future. I don't have kids, so other kids' futures, but they're like fighting over each other about what to spend money on. Like you should hear the intellectual. You probably wouldn't understand it, right? Because you're not snooty enough. But I can't even. I don't have the good words to describe the intellectual conversation about how important it is that the arts be funded at the federal level. And oh my God. So they're going to be clamoring for however much money or printing new money. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm saying I'm sure they'll casually go for every gun thing that ever comes across their thing. But I just am saying I don't think it's their only focus. I think they're going to have a lot of stuff going on over there and potentially gridlock. But obviously, we're not going to depend on that. I guess I'm going back up here. Let's see. Trump announced he's going to Parler. Well, that definitely would have slowed it down. Plus, they'll probably kick off Parler because of Trump, right?
Oh, and speaking of things being shut down, not directly shut down, but apparently now in the Play Store, you can't download the Gunbroker app. And I'm not sure about the Apple equivalent, the Apple Store or whatever. I saw that somewhere today. Not that you can't dig it out, just that it won't come up in your search results.
Well, I mean that's more of an operating system thing. I don't know if it is or not. So that'll be interesting to find out if these things are policy or if they're just policy like speed bumps, or if they're literally blocking access. Both of them will have different consequences and require different stuff out of us. Dead Horse is saying, I don't think guys with armored vehicles are going to back down to some guy showing up with ARs, but nice thought. Historically, it doesn't work very well. For sure. I don't know if that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what I guess we're assuming. But if sometimes things are good ideas, sometimes they're not. Apple took Parler off their store, and the Parler sketchy wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, I haven't. It didn't exist because it's so good. It's not like people are like, you got to try Parler. It is the shit. And also, a bunch of Republicans are over there doing things to each other like constantly. Instead, it's like Instagram won't let us do weird things all the time. Let's go over there and do them because they said it's cool. And then everybody's like, oh, you got to come over here. It's so weird. That doesn't appeal to me. So, yeah, I'm over there. But as much as I'm on, any new one that I'm still skeptical about. So I hear you. What do y'all think about Parler? Dead Horse side or pro? You're in big pocket of big Parler or in the weird area of big Parler?
Team Dead Horse, but I'm on Parler, but Team Dead Horse.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think Parler might be like that kid that you partied with in high school, but you didn't really like him, but you could party at his house.
And then he calls the police, and then you're all in jail, and then it's like, oh, I'm a cop. I'm really 21 Jump Street.
In the first 2 weeks, I was definitely part of the land grab for screen names and stuff like that. Snatched like 4 or 5 of them.
That reminded me of one time. They came down. We were all sitting around being bored at AOL one time, and they made this announcement and go, we're trying out, I think it was like 16 character screen names. So can you tell us if they work? Like, basically, like, can you make sure that a 16 character screen name will work? They wanted a couple of us to like attempt to see if they work. And I forgot what it was. Like, it seemed like, I think if I remember right, it wasn't all that long later. Like hours later, they were like, quit taking names. Because we all just sat there getting paid to just grab every 16 character name. Like, can you imagine like just a whole bunch of people like us when they said, hey, Google's giving us a bunch of free names. Like, you can now do something different, put a dash in a Google name or something. Like, you just sat there and grabbed 17 of them or 20 of them, just every dumbass thing you could come up with. They literally had to say, like, quit it. Like, quit taking the names, leave some for the members. Anyway.
Should have been like, quit taking the names, leave some for the members. That's a great name.
We probably did. I'm sure we did. That's the way we were. Anyway, so erstwhile saying it worked pretty recently for that guy in New York. Who was on Instagram where he was getting red flag? Oh, is that the guy who was turned out to just be in the attic or whatever?
Yes, over a 30-round mag. And that guy went to jail.
The mechanism worked, but then it allowed a guy.
I don't even think it worked. I don't. Like, if you watch what happened there, it did not work at all. A bunch of looky-loos showed up with cameras and and wanted to get views on their own channels and their own platforms.
Well, what I'm trying to say is the mechanism worked. It activated and it alerted people. But then
did one single person stand between him and the police? No.
The result was that nothing really happened. I'm just saying it alerted people, but it was pointless. Yeah. So I don't know, but that was only the only test thing. But the thing is, that guy wasn't even legit, right?
I don't think it was the only test. I think we've had lots of tests. It's just that most of those tests happened before social media, right? I think Waco was a test. Do I remember any citizen going down and standing between the ATF, between Waco and the ATF? No, I don't. Or
Ruby
any
Ridge.
other Ruby Ridge or any other instance like that.
Ruby Ridge, you couldn't. Waco.
I don't remember anyone showing up and standing in instances like that between law enforcement and the people the law enforcement are after.
People showed up and took pictures of it. That's it.
And the one time I do remember that happened in Chicago in the 60s, and like 100 people got killed or something. I mean, so it's historically that does not work, because government has resources, they have armored vehicles, they have more guns, more ammo, they got more better equipment. That's a battle that you don't win. Especially on a small scale. To win a battle like that, you need thousands of people to show up. Thousands, not 20, not 60, not 100. You're going to have thousands of people to scare away government.
Well, I can throw out an example where I can remember that people did stand between the government and the people they were after. That was, whether you agree with it or not, the Bundy.
He got killed. How did people stand before it?
He's not talking about the one in Oregon. He's talking about the one in Nevada. And it
Yeah.
was
okay.
more like the first scenario, though. And that was different. And that wasn't necessarily a guy who was like, I'm minding my own business. And he's like, I'm not paying for my fucking $5 cow stamps on 1,000 cows for 25 years because I feel like it's my land. It's a little different than.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of people showed up. It was more than 20 or 100. That was over 1,000.
It was more like you were saying. And it was cars, and people were still company. New people.
All the Native American tribes came out to support him. So many people and resources.
That's an example. But that is an example of a good a positive outcome of that kind of scenario or whatever.
But that was really cut and dry, where people could obviously see the government was in the wrong on that. On other questionable stuff like a red flag law, people are sitting back, being reasonable, saying, hey, is there a good reason this guy's getting red flagged, or is there no good reason? And
how would you want social media or anyone to judge your personal business about something like that? Because if it's your dad or if it's your sister and needs help, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm going to go online and say I don't need help. And then what? You're just going to let a bunch of strangers who just have an opinion about what their ma says or, their uncle says or something. And, therefore they have this position online and you're going to take their opinion on what your situation. So I don't know. But here's the thing. At this point, we're talking about specifics of a thing that I don't think any of us are experts on. We're just still kind of aware of it. And it isn't an existing thing that's operational. It's just sort of a theory. So is this the time to have that kind of conversation? I mean, we've literally has spent years having these kind of conversations. I think the time to have conversations about the theoretical or the potential is past. I'd much rather talk about how do we keep people aware of as much as possible without stressing out. How do we tag team awareness so that nobody gets stressed or panicked, and there's always like somebody you can look to, a fire buddy or whatever the hell you call it, somebody who's somebody you can look to and go, hey, is this for real? Am I overreacting, or is this something we need to be jumping on? And then maybe 3 people, so then it overlaps, and then there's always others that can help put things in perspective, because I suspect we're about to get wailed on. And one of the ways that the enemy wins is by throwing so much stuff at you that you just can't keep up. And we've seen people get apathetic and quit with 2 things, like, the Hearing Protection Act. It was going around at the same time as the national reciprocity. And did we get both of them because we're so gung-ho and we can't, even though we didn't work together, we each grabbed one and pulled? No, we let them both fucking die right in front of us because it was too, whatever, it was inappropriate to talk about it with an atrocity so close. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we get beyond that? Because that's the mechanism that they're going to get us. You know that atrocity is either waiting or they're waiting for, and somebody's just going, oh my goodness, the time is just right. I'm going to be the most famous, infamous asshole ever. I'm just going to do this, and then boom, it's just the right place. I mean, they're basically asking for it. They're saying, anybody who does anything right now, your name is going to be on our shit, right? Like, that's how we know that's coming. So how do we, instead of just talking about, oh man, look at all these grenades that just hit the ground, how do we get beyond the fact that we've got arms and legs blown off and some of us ain't going to be here tomorrow because this is too scary to think about? And how do we get ready for what's next? Because it ain't stopping. I think it's stopping for at least 2 years unless we can get resistant enough that they go, oh shit, let's go against swimming pools. Nobody cares about swimming pools. All right, now I'll shut up.
So before we dive into that, I'd like to go back to what Dead Horse was saying, and I agree with you partly, Dead Horse, but I think in the grand scheme, I'm gonna have to disagree. I agree that, if somebody was getting red flagged and, 5-10 of us just showed up and stood between that person and law enforcement, it's going to be a losing battle. But that's going to make headlines all over the nation. And if that kept happening over and over, and these things, God forbid if they turned into shootouts or anything, but let's say it's just, people are getting tear gassed and mace for, taking that stand. And then it starts coming out that, oh, well, that red flag order that was called in by a crazy ex-girlfriend that, was just PO'd at this guy and was trying to get revenge for whatever reason. And it was completely false. And then these people were.
But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't false? What does that make the people look like who stood up and showed up there to support that guy? What if that guy was a really bad guy, right? And he had no business owning a gun, I mean, and then a bunch of people show up and support him and people die over that, right? I mean, what does that make, I guess, the so-called patriots, that showed up to protect the bad guy? Doesn't that kind of put us all in that same boat? Like, oh, look at how, and then the left uses that as ammunition against us. Oh, look at these crazy right wingers showing up to protect a murderer.
But that's going to happen no matter what. And I mean,
well, see, the thing about Bundy is he had celebrities backing him and promoting him. He had the media that wasn't just completely bad-mouthing him and saying, oh, this is a bad guy, da-da-da. He had media support, he had celebrity support, and he had tons of people there. I don't even think 100 people showing up to defend some guy getting charged with red flag law is going to turn law enforcement away. I think it would take 1,000 or more. I mean,
I'm not saying it would turn them away. If 100 people showed up, I think it would turn law enforcement away because, I mean, you're only talking about the local yokels coming in to enforce these things. Even if it's state police, there's only so many officers at a barracks. I mean, unless you're talking about really big cities.
We're not even anywhere near specifics. So, I mean, there's nothing that any of us are going to do. We're talking about a theoretical that, was dropped in the chat about a thing.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is I think winning the war of attrition with that is where we would win. It's going to be losing battles at first, but over time, I think, is where we win with that.
And I hear what you're saying, and I think that there's ways to support and all that, but I also don't want to make us look like dumbasses or fools by doing it. Right?
Let's go on. Like I say, I've never even heard of that concept. I don't even know if we're on the right track with that. So let's move on from the idea of some kind of home alert that brings people to your house for red flags. Like, red flag is one of the grenades. Like, worrying about this potential specifics of a situation with maybe in the future of red flags is so specific and unnecessary. That's all I'm saying is, like, let's evolve. How do we deal with when there's red flags and assault weapons bans and ammunition isn't able to be sold in gun shows anymore, and gun shows are banned. I mean, we're about to get potentially hit with a bunch of stuff, or like I say, some kind of quagmire thing. But shouldn't we at least be ready? Shouldn't we do everything we can to assuming that we're about to get hit with everything without remorse and without stop? I don't know the California people enough, but Bedhorse, I don't know if you've been around when I've suggested it before, but I'm thinking that one of the things that we have as a bright side or a positive, an untapped resource that we never had before, or that we hadn't utilized before, is the activists from California. You know, they're born there, they've been infringed their whole lives, they're getting sick of it. They can articulate their positions, not just better than us, but to people in their vernacular. Is that the right way to say it? Like they can say stuff to somebody from California in the exact same way that they need to hear it to not be able to say anything back. These activists that I've been hearing and chatting with, or observing them chat to each other, don't have the same stuff as us. So is there, I don't know if you've been paying attention to them at all, or is that just that description of it give you any hope that what we had in 13 we're not going to have this time around? But is it possible that we're going to have even more, like that we got allies this time around that are
I think to the layman, yes. To the politician, no, because it obviously hasn't worked. They obviously haven't gotten through to the politicians in California. That's obvious. But to the regular person that maybe be in the middle, or maybe even be on the anti-gun side, they might be able to say, hey, listen, they brought gun laws here to California. It didn't lower the crime. It didn't stop the murders. It didn't do this. It didn't do that. It didn't fix this. So I think to the layman or the person.
No. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say to the layman or the person, I think, that people who've been through that in California can get through. But to politicians, I don't think so. I
can't. Yeah, you're right. As far as like, but as far as if you just look at the results of what California is like, however, California is the result, or it exists, where California today is 7 million gun owners. I don't know how many activists are there, like 15 or 1,700 or something, and then
over 8 million last I checked. Gun owners in California. Yeah.
And some smaller portion of that, much smaller portion of that are the activists of the gun owners, the people that are being aware. And then of course a giant population, something like 40 million, that don't give a crap and maybe even are anti. So they've definitely, if you just look at their results, they haven't won, but their odds are unsurmountable. They have huge odds against them. The fact that they're still fighting and even there is amazing. The fact that it's like a badger or a raccoon. Yeah, they're not a grizzly bear, but you stick a raccoon that's hungry in some place, and are they going to come back and know that there's a difference between what happened to that room between a grizzly bear and a raccoon? Like, they're still going to find the food in that room. So I guess I hear what you're saying. They're not going to have magic words to say to a politician for sure. However, like I say, the way that they, I don't even want to say argue, the way that they state their positions to the antis require the antis to answer them. Everything I've ever seen until halfway through last year, halfway through 2020, and everything I've ever seen has been how to get our point across louder or faster or in a different way. Very rarely do any of us think about how to have effective conversation, and instead we think about how to get our messages just out there more and find more people that agree with our message, or that can hear our message and be talked into our position, or sold on our position, or add our position to their mix or something. But the people I'm thinking of, and this might not be all of them, but the couple that I've listened to are like looking at the NFA and able to require the antis to justify some stuff that we've just never brought up as points before. Requiring them to complete their arguments or complete their positions, something as simple as that, where we get upset when we hear, XYZ out of them. This new breed is like, Oh, XYZ, huh? What about ABCDEFGHIJK? When you can answer all those, let's talk about XYZ, and in a way that isn't confrontational as much as like, the way that they would talk to each other, I suspect. Anyway, at least I think there's that opportunity, and I'm only talking to or listening to the people from California mostly. I suspect that's got to be happening with like the Charlies and the people in Massachusetts and New Jerseys and New York. And I don't know. I would like to think that the Second Amendment Foundation groups like that have gotten them together so that they can war game, but I don't know if that's happening. And again, I don't think this is the time to try starting that. Go ahead.
I wanted to add that apparently going into this year, California has more conservative people in office, so it might be a good year for California, but it also might not be.
Hey, Angelina, I'm sorry I have to plead ignorance, but you guys California just got rid of Jerry Brown for the second time in its history.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have now?
Gavin Newsom.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well,
And
they know
isn't
more
he
from the
worse than
patches
Jerry
alone.
Brown?
Yeah, from the patches alone, I know what
but
the opinion is on him.
I'm talking about like senators and congressmen and like other offices,
Oh,
not the main office. That's why I said politicians.
yeah, totally. I just remember, what was it, third quarter of 2018, he signed a whole bunch of stuff in, raised the age of long gun purchases to 21. And the most heinous one that I can remember was if you had more than one visit a year as like an inpatient for psych, you faced a lifetime firearm ban. I mean, how does that even work? How do all of the California citizens, service people and others with PTSD or any other serious and significant difficulty seek appropriate care under the threat of losing their right to defend themselves for a lifetime, 10 rounds at a time or not? Sorry, indignant.
I mean, I suspect there's probably a huge amount of people that don't seek any treatment for whatever difficulties they have because of that. But yeah, I mean, California, they do it and they get away with it. And there's a lot of gun owners, but I know firsthand from my own efforts that nobody shows up. So even though like California has a ton of guns, I mean, California has, what is it, like a billion, million, trillion guns or something in the state. But, when we have petitions to try to get something done, nobody shows up.
Shitty. What's with the Cali apathy then?
Oh,
I mean,
so that's one thing I've always wondered about is I've seen the California pro-gun, protests, and I'll see 20 people show up, and I'll look at a different state and their pro-gun, protests. I'll see thousands of people show up, and I'm like, wait, there's 5 times more gun owners in California than this other state. Why are only so few people showing up? And I wondered about that. And I think that it comes down that something is in place there, and I don't know exactly what, but they're in fear of retaliation and being targeted. And I have caught a couple videos of not necessarily California, but someone will show up at a gun rally and have a sign or something, and law enforcement or ATF or something will show up at their door within that next week and be like, oh, were you at this protest and da-da-da. And there's videos on YouTube showing that. And I suspect something like that is in place in California and has been in a long time, to where people are afraid to show up. They're afraid that their vehicle license plates are going to get caught on film or that people are watching and that they're going to get targeted and have retaliation against them. And I'm not saying that's the case. That's just what I suspect why so few people show up to those pro-gun rallies in California. And maybe Angelina knows more about that than I do, but that's just what I suspect.
there's no way. I mean, come on. We already know there's 7 million gun owners or 8 million gun owners. So all people can have is their experience or whatever, and you're only experiencing the ones that you're paying attention to. I follow the San Diego gun club, or is it gun owners?
Oh yeah, San Diego gun owners. Or yeah, I know who you mean with the star logo.
Yeah, and there's like 3 of them or something. So I don't know if you guys follow them, but they'll have different events. They've had a lot of resistance and attempts to ban their gun shows. I think successful attempts to ban their gun shows, and then they'll get them back. So I know what you're saying, man. Sometimes like there's like 4 people there, but then other times it looks like a whole parking lot's full of people rocking out. So I mean, it's probably holidays and all this garbage with whatever's coming up. But in the past, you've had different scenarios, and that's the thing. We can't like hold what people did in the past with what's going on now. I mean, we've got like again a whole different scenario going forward that we really never had before. But so I hear what you're saying, and I guess I was asking, do you think that California gun whatever can be whatever, I don't call them, like I guess resources like we've never had before. And I hear what you're saying, but then I'm going to throw out there just before we move on to something else that the Gun Owners of America comes out of Gun Owners of California, and that's obviously out of California. So they have in the past started things that have lasted literally since 1975. So it's not it wouldn't be unprecedented, I guess, for them to do something. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm crazy too, because I'm just desperately looking for, what's new, and so that we're not just repeating ourselves. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but I really think that repeating ourselves to being consistent is one of our worst traits. I think that makes us susceptible.
Also to add, dead horse, yes. That's the thing that's been being said for years, that when you go to a gun show, you're gonna get like followed home and shit, and like that's 100.
I've seen videos of them showing, the police going around with their scanner scanning license plates in the parking lots and stuff, and then the police can say, "Oh, I'm just looking for people with expired tags or whatever," but who knows what else they could be doing with that information? I mean, yeah, I've heard that for years too, but. And I'm just, and maybe that's not the whole part of the problem, but I think it could be some part,
Well, it's certainly a facet. It could be the ATF. They go around and will look to see license plate. Let's say they go to a thing in California and look at license plates, and then they gather a bunch. I don't know if they're I'm not trying to justify this shit either, but I'm thinking they'll go to Arizona and look at license plates and then see how many of them are California plates. Well, if they're seeing a bunch of California plates in Arizona, and then they see the same California plates in California, and then they see the same California plates in Utah, well, that's pretty much an indication that that's a vendor. That's somebody that's at all those shows, not necessarily somebody that's, I don't know. So I'm just saying, like, if they're doing something like that, you have to go to the parking lot to figure it out. But, are we going to say we don't want the ATF to be running down gun smugglers or something? Like, they have a job, so they got to do it. I don't want to run around watching over every ATF agent's shoulder to make sure they're doing their job right. But what I'm saying, I don't want to micromanage law enforcement. But at the same time, nobody's asking them to have a free reign or anything either. But the hell, now again, I mean, that is how they're going to get us, right? If we sit around worrying about potentialities of something, or something like, how come California gun owners aren't different, right? Like what else could we, waste time talking about, basically? Kingpin is saying, so I don't know how to evolve. I just know when we're saying the same things over and over again, right? Too many people just like to listen to you talk about stuff. Here for the entertainment, not action or even ideas. And it is Friday night, so I guess I understand that. But at the same time, man, I don't know if has anybody listened to like NPR at all, or something on the other side, the anti-gun type of reaction or description of what happened in Washington?
I do
DC?
public radio, but I didn't catch anything in the last couple of days driving around.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I don't know what the goal is. I think it's to impeach Trump, and I think it's obviously anytime they can take a slight at gun owners or whatever. But just I didn't get to record it, but I did record a couple other things after they said it. I was like, ugh, this is tough to listen to. But you know what? Those are wordsmiths. They go to school to figure out what words to use exactly, and they also know how mammals react and how society works. So they they know exactly what to say to get reactions they want.
I haven't been listening to, news has been down in my house for a long time on both sides, so I don't watch any news channels, whether they're right wing or left wing or, whatever, even really in the middle. But I try and avoid that at all costs. I listen to more independent people and their views on stuff. And one thing that concerns me right now is I see us kind of destroying each other, like attacking each other over, stuff that's happened in the media lately, like the Capitol and stuff. I'm seeing, I guess you could call them Trump supporters or patriots or whatever label you want to put on them, but I see them attacking each other with no basis, like they're for really nothing but rumors. I mean, calling Trump supporter or patriot, saying, "Oh, that guy's an Antifa, and that guy's this, and anyone who has a Trump hat on backwards is an Antifa," or something like that. And I'm like, man, that's a really dangerous slope. If you're going to say anyone who wears their hat backwards at a rally is Antifa now, right? What's next? If you have black on, you're Antifa, or if you have piercings or tattoos, you're Antifa, or if you have hair dye in your hair, you're Antifa. Like, I mean, where does that end at? And I think
it ends at stopping. It ends at not acknowledging every time they come up with something. That's how someone who's trying to manipulate affects it.
Well, exactly. And I see people like Patriot channels right now on YouTube that I watch, right? Like, or Trump supporters, gun channels, falling for this, and literally putting out videos saying, "Hey, you see this kid at the rally with this Trump hat on backwards? This kid's Antifa." And then I go and research this kid. This kid was in the Marine Corps. He was in the Peace Corps. I'm like, where's the Antifa in this kid? I don't see it. But yet you're bad-mouthing this kid, claiming he's Antifa for just because he had a hat on backwards. I mean, that to me, that's like the worst thing someone can do is falsely accuse someone with no proof, right? And I mean, and that it just disgusts me. And I've been trying to call out all the channels I can that are doing this. I'm like, hey, show me.
It's not possible, though. That's what I'm saying. You couldn't, even if you could use a magic wand, and when you had found a channel that was inaccurate, you could use the magic wand and they'd understand and they'd be accurate. You would never find all the inaccurate channels. So is it then an action or something that's worth attempting? Because there's other ways to address it. And here's the thing. We could have been talking about Bundy Ranch. I mean, we did. At least the two of us have sat in the chat like this and talked about Bundy Ranch as it was happening. And what conversations, that guy's scope is looking right at a cop. Oh, he shouldn't be pointing right at a cop. He should be pointing over the cop's head so that it's indicating the cop will know. And this kind of, I mean, like we had all these conversations, and what happens 7 years later? We're still here having these conversations. So how do we get beyond the specifics? The specifics is how the manipulators get us. They go, hey, here's what happened, and here's all the specifics, details of it. And then, of course, it's your tendency. We understand things in layers, and we understand complexity. So as soon as we start hearing details, our minds start to shift details and understand and try to figure it out. Like what can be understood from this so that we can all accomplish something from this conversation, right? And if they're going to figure that out, I mean, what the fuck? They're watching us every time we do anything. I mean, it's so easy for them to show our habits. We need to be able to kind of self-realize and change our habits by nodding to each other and not having to, what I mean? And we can do that when we're hunting and the critter smells us. We don't need to go, hey, let's stop and have a conversation about how we shouldn't be making that noise with the leaves, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go over here and you go over here. Instead, we nod and then some of us fucking go over there, and some of us stay here, and we get fucking fed. That's what I'm saying. Is how do we get the conversation to where we get past our little glitches that we've always had, especially when we're talking stuff that's inherent to everything. I mean, shit, if we were talking about cars, it'd be like, oh, why doesn't this guy like Fords? Or how come she doesn't like blue Jeeps or whatever? You know, there's just going to be things that I think they're going to depend on us to get bogged down in. And I don't know if I'm explaining it right, and I'm not trying to nag or nothing or bitch, but I really want to try to not have the same conversation. I won't have the same conversation as we've had in past years again this in 2021. That doesn't solve anything. We need to bring new people to the conversation, have different words come out of different mouths, and fast, because it's we don't get it. We're not going to have opportunity to sit around and scrutinize our actions, our inactions, and then wait for the next volley. I mean, we've already seen at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hit today, and they haven't even completely taken office yet. And again, 7 mortars going out. So one of them's hitting in the lake, and all it's going to do is kill some fish. But we have to be aware that 7 of them launched out of tubes. And so somebody at least is counting. And again, you don't start in the middle of a battle and go, you're going to count the mortar tubes. You know, somehow it just has to get done. And I'm sorry, I don't know instructions, but I think that's part of the problem, is that we have to all figure out how to do some stuff without instructions. And I don't know how to say it any different than that. And maybe I'm totally wrong. I'm just chatting at this point. We're just talking to talk at this point. Ursula says, to make matters worse, they announced they're going to push through DC statehood soon. 2 more. Yeah, that's going to be.
That would be really hard to do. You have to get a 2/3 majority in both houses.
DC can never be a state. That's why it's not a state, is it has to be impartial. Like that'll never happen.
They're more likely to get like Puerto Rico to be a state.
Oh, much more likely, yes.
I don't know. I know that it's an issue there, though. A couple of times I've been there, like they are not like unaware of it. Like that's a big thing there.
Right.
Maryland's pretty weird anyway.
Kinkman saying that I said the 2A needed to send more support to commie states like MD in California. Most people just said move. Yeah, definitely that was has been a lot of the tendency, but I'll challenge that because it has changed over the years. When gun channels first started in 2013, that was the consistent message. Like, oh, I'm in California, woe is me. Then fucking move. Let's help you move. Let's get you out of there so that you can enjoy your life. That was pretty much everyone's message. And it wasn't, it's just a message. It isn't good or bad. I don't think it applies differently to everybody for sure. But it's not the only message, Sam, for sure. But yeah, that's a frustrating thing. And the thing is, California is just sitting here next to Arizona, so I'm familiar with it. But if I was in some of y'all's position, I'd be much more aware of like New York or New Jersey, right? Or Maryland or Connecticut or any other states over there, Pennsylvania, even a little bit, Massachusetts. Or no, I guess it's not really Pennsylvania. I'm thinking of Massachusetts. I guess rectangle states look the same over there. All East Coast states look the same to me. And I guess somebody said in here earlier, did I miss it? That budget isn't live. Our lawyers finally got him. He can't cork us anymore. So yeah, he doesn't have to pay us a lot. He just has to go work overtime and then give us that check to reimburse. At least I think that's how it's done. I understand it correctly.
I like your theory, G. I'm going to need to myelinate on that idea that how do we make our discussions be different than the same ones we've had for years. I like the idea.
Well, we're definitely going to have a backwards one day where we're going to start at the end of the conversation and work our way forward. And it's going to be 1 hour and that will happen. But I don't know. I just want to keep throwing that out there because they're definitely going to get us. I mean, unless I'm totally fucking glitched or something. I think that's how they plan on getting us, right? Just wailing on stuff. And I really don't think it's like they're sitting there with some sort of master plan with like this really elaborate, complicated situation. I think it's a shit ton of people are going to be trying to exploit in everything they possibly can. Like a bunch of new people take over the reins, right? They're going to be running around figuring out what they can get back to their constituents or to their special interests or whatever, the companies that got them there. And then it's going to be a big pain. It's going to be a big quagmire. Like, they're going to need this. They're all going to be against us. So that's the problem. It's not going to be like to our advantage. It's just going to be a scenario, I think. I could be wrong. I mean, they could have all figured this shit out. I mean, there's a lot of people that say this was all planned, right? If they sit down and just all go quietly like this. I mean, that could be a whole nother scenario. And then maybe that's how we change the conversation, by talking about new eventualities or potentialities or whatever the word is, instead of just whatever's laying in front of us and trying to expand on what's in front of us right now. Or is that wasting time? Where's the rules?
I have to go find my rule book.
Robert's rules.
So I have a question that's sort of related to that. Does the kind of newer distrust of the government from both sides help us in any way or hurt us in some way?
Helps us. It's got to. Everything has to be an advantage. We haven't already won. Therefore, everything we've already done didn't work, at least in the combination we used it in. Everything we have has to be an advantage because we haven't used it against them yet. And they are basically feeble to only be able to come up and do the same thing at us. And we're just so complacent that we either, they come out of nowhere and do it to us and we go, ow, or they come out of nowhere and do it to us and we say no, or they come out of nowhere and do it to us and we go, yeah, you're right. We should have never we should have never even asked for hearing protection in the first place. We should have never even asked for national reciprocity. Sorry. So we do it to ourselves.
I got a question for Wood. So, I don't watch media or anything, but you said the common distrust for the government on both sides. Are there a bunch of leftists out there right now saying that don't trust the Dems, screaming that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, because I haven't heard that. I don't know.
A lot of that BLM people are still at our governor's mansion. Our governor's mansion was overrun yesterday by the red team, but the crazy sort of blue team, but they still don't even like them because they don't think they go far enough, have been at the governor's mansion for the last couple of weeks.
It's not as though there's an equal and opposite version in a different color shirt,
right?
Owners on that side, but they have their own weird piles of shit to deal with. So I think that's another potential conversation then, to talk about realistic recon of what the hell the others, the anti-freedoms are all about, because it would be definitely it would be a way to be less stressed, and it would be a better way to strategize, to understand that they are not in unity. Like, they have all kinds of ways that they hate each other and are not working together and will backstab each other. They are the most unscrupulous. Well, they're all politicians, so they're unscrupulous and shit, but they're the most unscrupulous. Like, they've done horrible things in their records, things that, if we were in a movie or something, we could be holding against them. So I think maybe that's an angle, right? Just to do an actual sit rep on who all our biggest adversaries are, and again, some sort of what's that called when you get a little folder with all their info, with a little thing of each one, so that we can kind of tell oh, okay, this one's coming to get us. Well, you're the one that thinks islands flip over, dumbass. Or oh, you're trying to get us with the same thing you brought to us 14 times and you didn't change it when you took it from Oregon to Nevada. Seriously, some of this stuff, if we think that they're solid adversaries and we get stressed, we're wasting our time. Some of these people are pathetic jokes, and we got to be able to use that to our advantage. So maybe that's something, just again, to do a show or something, or some kind of a project where you examine all the different antis and how inept or useful, able they are.
One thing I've noticed for the last couple of months, and I'm going to say both brands do this, red and blue, that they see something on the internet and they say, see, that was the thing we just said about, and kind of like what Dead Horse was talking about, these guy was this and this and this. And you're like, where's any evidence that's actually true? But I think some confirmation bias. They already have a belief, and then they go find the thing that they're saying this proves it.
Evidence. I don't need no evidence. That kind of mentality.
Right.
Well, and you can walk away from those people. That's another way to change the conversation, right? Is to no longer sit around and or give time to the people that are like that, like just weird and dumb and like behind. And I mean, it might seem not nice to them, but seriously, like if some child came up to the table in the time of stress, are you going to be like, oh, now's the time to explain stress to the child? Or are you like, go away, we'll explain stress later? I mean, I'm not great at that, but I'm trying to, if that's the best analogy or not. But
Well, it's not even that. It's like the flat Earth people. It's the same mentality. They're not going to listen to any logical or reasonable arguments you give them. So
right, like you got to do triage,
time.
Right? Like, guess what? We're not going to talk about this. So you keep saying it in the chat. We're just going to all ignore it. And maybe 6 months from now, when it's all said and done, you can tell us how, yeah, like the moon would have really changed this or something. Although Moon is an ally for 2A. He just hasn't been around for long.
It's holding all the extra ammo we can't find right now.
Well, we had a guy named Moon a long time ago.
Ah.
Echo is saying, I thought that islands did flip over. That's why they put all the heavy people in the center. Well, what you do is you put all the food in the center, and then the fat people go to the food, so your island doesn't flip over.
Thomas Jefferson, back in the day, he told Lewis and Clark when they got to the West Coast, they would find another mountain range that's the same size as the Appalachians, because if they were bigger, then the whole continent would flip over. The Rockies are at least 3 times the size.
Truth.
So you can see why Meriwether Lewis, he quit writing for almost 2 months. I think it's because he saw over the mountain and went, oh no, there's even more mountains. And how do we, I guess I can bring it back to how do we, now that we might be looking over the mountains and seeing more mountains, not quit writing in the drone?
Dude, I walk up this hill and then I walk up another hill. And then sometimes I walk down this hill and then I walk up another hill and then another hill and then I'm back here. So I've been thinking about turning on a camera because that's the world, right? That's cycles. That's existence is, oh, there's a fucking big ass hill. And then you start walking up it and it's incremental changes that seem like negligible. And you got the opportunity at any time to just stop and go, oh, I'm higher than where I started. I'm done, right? I can talk myself into saying I'm done here. Or you just, whatever, you keep walking, right? And at some point, yeah, you get to that point where it's like, oh, okay, I thought this was the top of the hill, but nope, this ain't the top of the hill. I guess it curves around a bit and shit, okay, it flattens out here. Okay, I guess this is the top. Nope, turns out the top's a little bit further. Okay, I'm at the top. And then when you look at front, you're either looking at a downhill, like, fuck, I walked all the way up here and I got to walk down again, or another fucking uphill, right? Like it's always that. How do we do that with 2A?
I think, like you said, you got to chunk it. You walk to this rock and then go to that tree and then go to the next thing.
I think that's good. And I was trying to come up with an answer where you're going to have remember that one movie where this one little skinny kid had a bodyguard or something and he would run? Or am I mixing up?
Bodyguard.
My Bodyguard, yeah.
Back in like
80s, that was classic.
Back in the days of taps, I just remember there was this kid who ran all the time, and I was like, "The fuck could run all the fucking time? What a dumbass thing to do with your life is just run all the fucking time. Like, unless you have to, like, what the fuck would you run all the time?" But there's people that do that. They fucking enjoy it, right? And then there's people that are like, "Oh, I can't run all the damn time. Like, I got other things to do with my life than run for 14 hours or whatever. But I can run fast for like from here to there, or like I can run a basketball or whatever the hell it is, or a football. I don't know, sports. I can run fast for a minute." And then that's the thing. We don't all have to do it. We're collaborative, right? We're a bunch of people working together. So maybe that's the way to look at it is like, we've got our sprinters, right? We got our marathoners and whatever the hell the rest of us are called. And then I don't think in war, everybody's like, hey, do you have the energy to run over there and throw that grenade back at the Nazis? Or, oh, I'm better at not throwing the grenade back at the Nazis. The fucking grenade just got thrown back at the Nazis or you died, right?
Well, maybe we're not. Maybe we're looking at it that it's an individual sport, but maybe it's more of a relay.
Yeah, you
Or
said
as a team action. We're a squad. We're a squad.
I hand it off to Cobalt, and then he keeps running to somewhere else. And
or maybe many squads. That's why I like to look at it too. I forgot where I heard it. Somebody said you don't tell you don't micromanage volunteers. You tell them the objective, and you sit back and watch. And that's what they are. Right? We're like, oh, these 2 people work together. That's 16 people work together. This loser who's sucking money off of the community and the industry, has got millions of subscribers, and he's an influencer, and he can, or no, those people don't do shit, but other people who have, fewer people working together, they live in an area, they have a similar interest or whatever. Yeah, they work together and accomplish things. And then maybe the 3-letter organizations, the national 3-letter organizations that provide the places for people to come together in after action or recon and, describe, this is how I did this, or didn't work here. Does anybody have any ideas? But I don't know. That's beyond us, I guess. That's just theoretical, wasting our time again, maybe.
Well, but 2 things. I mean, you brought up My Bodyguard, and some people run, but everybody wanted to kick Matt Dillon's ass. That Moody character that was like picking on everybody anyway. They were just waiting for Moody to go down. So it's like, who's the puppet? Who's preaching from their bully pulpit and needs to be pecked off of it? Who can be brought low in the estimation of the people who put so much confidence in them and show how misguided they are? Any likely candidates here?
So you're saying, like, at the end of the movie, the nerd kid actually fights the bully himself and doesn't have the bodyguard do it, and then all the other kids are like, we should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, and they're all ready to hang out with those 2.
That's a lot of it, is people don't realize until somebody else does it in front of them that was a thing, that was an option. And then it's like, oh, well, if that's an option, I'm going to do it this way. Or if that's an option, with 4 of us can do it way better and faster because we already know how to do that.
So speaking of options, so for what we're trying to achieve, what are our current known options of going, like, what routes do we usually go? Because we've got, writing our senators and stuff, which, for whatever that achieves. We've got protesting, whether armed or unarmed. We've got what we're doing here right now, using the interwebs to further our message. I mean, G-Webs, you're recording this. So those are our standard options, right? So,
well, those are a good few to jump off from. Sure.
We got research. So, we can spend time actually getting answers.
So going back to what I said about the squad tactics things, I mean, in a squad or a group trying to reach an objective, we all have things we're better at, things like you were saying, things that one person's better at than the other. And whoever said the relay idea, that was definitely a good thing too. But so, like, for example, Walt Anderson's really good at the research and explaining that kind of stuff in a very coherent and eloquent way. G-Webs, you're very good at, well, getting this whole thing kind of going. I mean, so how do we play off each other's strengths and that kind of a thing? What are our individual strengths, and how can we use that in conjunction with each other? And
like our 2A resumes? No, serious. I mean, I'm not being facetious there.
No, I know. It's just an interesting choice there, but no, but seriously, like, go with that. Like, G-Webs, describe your resume. What are you good at?
He will be back in a few. So what's your resume?
My resume is still being built right now.
Okay, but you correct me if I'm wrong. You're former military.
Me?
Yeah, I thought you were, Cobalt.
Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, somebody on the Walt server, I confused you accidentally there. Okay, so who has military background or service?
Just G, right? I don't know, DJ, were you in the service?
No. Okay, so G. I mean, the organizational nature of the kind of thing he said specifically, I've seen him mention it and heard him say it several times. Small squad tactics. I think that's genius. And since he knows how to work within that with the military overlay of things, the organizational nature, the structure and stuff like that. Earlier, when we were talking about how do we communicate, and I was thinking, okay, high signs. How could we be in a group to signal to each other, okay, this guy's a kook. Let's see if we can't get the sign out of his hand, that sort of thing. And I was thinking, okay, so there are all these signs, and hand signals and shit we see like in films and whatnot, where it's like, boom, somebody closes their fist and holds it up. You stop, you drop, they, put your hand down. It's like, and, signals for landing planes and, all the hand stuff we do. Semaphore is gone, but, I'm kind of stretching there. But, I think having that nonverbal communication and cueing can be an extremely effective way to mobilize a group within a group. And one of the examples I just saw come out of what went down in DC was I was completely unaware of this practice of marking weapons on a certain team in a significant way so that other members of the team don't, they don't draw friendly fire. So they have these, these red and white, candy cane stripes on their clocks. I was like, wow, nonverbal communication, instantly recognizable, and everybody else is left scratching their heads and wondering, well, why are they doing that? Just like I was. Well, in 2 seconds, it doesn't matter.
Right, well, so I don't know what you're coming. I came back, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. But when I left, you were saying like, what are options or whatever? Where did it go from there? Or is there
2A resumes, and Cobalt wanted to know, like, what do you feel that you have strong skills in?
Dead Horse, though, says, I rely on people who have temperament to watch that stuff without it affecting their lives and family to inform me what I should know about the people, like the people on this chat or other show. So that's in response to Kingpin, right? Saying something about
that I need to
watching the news. But I think that's another one when you're talking about things that can be accomplished. I am not going to watch the news. Like, I don't like it. It is manipulative. And when I listen to NPR, it just, oh man, they just yank chains. Like, they know what they're doing. So somebody who's aware of that and has the temperament to want to listen to it, I'd much rather have them listen to it, because then they'll have the experience to be able to go, they're doing their mopey blah, 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 but they're only leaning into it like 3/4 as hard as they did such and such. So yes, they're saying this and they're making a show, but more than likely they're stressed out because of this and that. And that's what we need, is somebody who's got some insight to what's really going on, let's say behind enemy lines, or, with that form of communication, and then have like a round table where it's like, this is what NPR's got going on, and we think based on that, blah, 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 and have some sort of discussion. Then we can all watch that discussion and disseminate decent sit rep or whatever, where to be like, recap of what the media, and if somebody did that on a weekly basis and, we got used to that, now we don't even have to watch media. We've got a few people that would become superstars in our community that we could use. And it would be like, this person is, aware of this, or that person's aware of that, or these people have a different way of doing it. So, there's plenty of room there, but I think that's an opportunity to help give us a gist of what the news has been doing. Is that what you guys are kind of bouncing back and forth in these comments?
Yeah, exactly. And, I have my own reasons why I, stopped, turned off the news in my house, and I don't like it. And the main reason is because we have to learn to moderate ourselves, right? And I caught myself getting upset about what was on the news and on the media, and then taking it out on my family, right? And taking it out on people around me. And that wasn't fair to them. And so one day I had to tell myself, hey, this isn't fair to anybody else, that I'm getting upset over this crap and that I'm letting it affect me. I don't know how to stop letting it affect me except for to turn the damn thing off, right? So I made that choice myself to protect my family. And I'll tell you what, ever since I made that decision, it's been, like 8 years now I've been doing that with literally no news channels in my house. And it's fabulous. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's so much better. I'm not near as stressed out anymore. I used to watch the news every single night at 9 p.m. every morning at 7 a.m. Like every day. What's the weather going to be like? What's going on? I was that guy. Every day I watched the news, and ever since I stopped that, I've had a much better life, much less stress in my life. I'm a much happier person. And that's just me. Other people.
Well, you didn't decide to stick your head in the ground and be unaware. You just chose to let somebody else summarize it or to
exactly.
get it through
The stuff that I really need to know, like you guys in this chat and other channels like Gizzard Gary or whoever. Right. They're telling me the information, and of course it's going to be somewhat biased from their perspective, and I understand that.
Because know them, we know how it's biased, or we know how they're going to give it to us, right?
Exactly. And I would much rather listen to like you or Gizzard Gary or something say, hey, this is going on here, than someone on CNN or Fox telling me it. And because I have to sift through a bunch of bullshit on CNN or Fox or whatever to get to that useful information. And by the time I get to that useful information, I've already heard 10 other things that upset me, that affected me, that stressed me, that, right. And so
because that's how it's written.
Well, kind of in a similar vein to what y'all are saying about, if somebody knows something, say it and maybe disseminate it a little in a calmer manner. One thing that I think would benefit us all is, for example, DJ, you mentioned this in the comment section earlier. Like I had put out a video today, somewhat in response to Walt Anderson's video about the information that had been passed along about a armed protest at all the capitals and shit, including DC, on the 17th. And Walt mentioned that there's a lot of foreign backing to that, and, where it originated from. And one thing I don't remember him mentioning, maybe he did, maybe I missed it, but just in case, I had posted on my channel today that the real issue with that is the timing, and especially with what just happened in DC, is really not good because it paints sedition, optics wise on our side. And if it is foreign backing, technically it could be construed really easily as treason. So I added that to his. So what we can do with each other's channels is if we see another channel posting something, we can add to that. Say, hey, here's something you didn't consider. So post about it, like on your end.
Yeah, and I think Clover brings up the idea that people who are watching multiple things play a role, right? The mortar between the bricks is there, and it literally keeps everything together. So, yeah, that's where if 3 people are like, hey, heads up. I mean, we do this anyway, but just being aware that that's a role that we play, like that gives hopefully people something to focus on, right? There's more that we can do to be aware of or what, but maybe not just assume, oh, I watched it on 3 videos and they know, but 4th video over here doesn't know. Don't take that for granted. Maybe, I don't know. At the same time, I don't want everybody annoying everybody either, but I guess it's all about, again, knowing the people involved, and then, okay, this guy won't mind, or this girl won't mind if I tell her for the 4th time something that she already knows, or this person doesn't like to get told 5 times, so maybe I'll wait and see or something. So
always put the message
maybe
out
it's
there
just a matter of focusing on or being intent in our time spent. I mean, that's part of it too, is just knowing that, like, you don't get to go fishing in a war. So, when we know that we're about to be rolling up our sleeves and doing a bunch, just having the mindset we're going to be not so much playing online as getting work done online or pitching in online. I think we're still talking about news. He says, I agree with Spoon, that's a he. Looks like a boy cat. I agree that news is aggregating to say the least. It's all a bunch of opinion based on BS. Very few shows have any value to them, intellectual value. The thing I was thinking of is NPR. Whenever I listen to it in the van, I'll just be skipping, especially if I'm like in Phoenix. I don't keep track of what their stations are, and my satellite radio won't come in because all the stations are too strong. So I'll just flip the next until something comes on that I can handle, and then I just leave it there. So if it's talking about something interesting, or there's things on NPR that are okay. So if it's something that I'm listening to, then it'll turn into something else or whatever. So some of the times when I listen to NPR, it seems like it'll do something very personal and like very intimate and very like just stuff that I don't find interesting, but like gossipy shit or like, something really personal. And then it'll be something horrible, like something atrocious, like just stuff that I don't even want to think about. And they'll just go on and on about it. And just when you're like, gosh, horrible, they don't almost ever come up with a nice conclusion. It's just this like bullshit, like, oh, and then it ended, and then I guess we'll never know, or like, I guess maybe everyone will die this way. It's just some bullshit answer that's like fatalistic, or maybe that's the way to say it. And then it'll go back into being like, and now we're going to talk about like what's in your poop, and like, oh, remember how when you poop and you feel this, like, and it's like, like I don't want to hear about this shit. And what if you're sitting there with somebody like your grandma, and they start bringing this shit up, like just inappropriate, weird. And I think that's intentional. They had other things. They could talk about spelling bees. Like when I was a kid listening to NPR, it would be like, hey, what can we cook or whatever? Or like, oh, here's something interesting about a musical instrument. And now it's just like atrocities and slights against people. And
well, those are the news breaks and a couple of the shows, but the preponderance of the programming on public radio is not news. And the variety programming, and I tossed into the comments, where else is my mom going to get her Sunday symphonies? Programming for particularly the boomer generation, the radio generation that they were. It's a great outlet for them, and it does pursue. Where else were we going to hear world music outside of Los Angeles in the 80s or something like that? Well, you're going to get it, and David Byrne was going to host it, and a whole label was going to be built around emerging artists from there. So the exposure is like this worldwide live kind of thing I always had an appreciation for, as well as probably to me the most astute, well-reasoned, well-mannered, and even-tempered journalist that I ever knew in television, and that was Jim Lehrer. And he was the moderator for so many presidential debates. You don't get that by being a pundit. You get that by people not even knowing that you're there almost. It's a smooth, even-tempered countenance that makes sure that you get equal time. I used to work in public radio, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about what I hear now, though. And like I say, I don't think it's designed to inform or do anything. I think it's designed to keep you listening and to satisfy, just like that ASMR stuff exists. They just figured out that works for them because they do that a lot, too. They breathe in that fucking mic and they're always making weird teeth noises and shit out of them. You can hear every fucking piece of spit in their mouth when they talk.
Whatever it takes to maintain the profit.
What?
So whatever it takes to maintain the profit.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if it is profit because they don't need a profit. They get paid by the government, so that means they get paid by all these grants and stuff. So I think it's more just what they want. They want to satisfy the opinions of the people that are listening to it. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, they're either. I don't think they were like, hey, we're going to make everybody like the color green, even though they like all their other colors. I just think that they were like, oh, our audience likes the color green, so guess what? Everything's going to be green. I think the people that listen to NPR, expect the radio to do something, be a certain attitude or perspective. And it's like now it's anti-Trump, right? Like all those shows you're talking about that like used to be almost entertaining. I'd listen to like nerds talk about words or puzzles or dumbass like NPR shows. And it was just interesting to listen to somebody who I wouldn't probably ever hang out with, nerd out on whatever weird nerd words or whatever they were nerding out about. And then every once in a while you learn something, right? But now you can't listen to that because whatever amount of humor or intellect or interest or whatever they might have said, it's going to be like just some corny, like, but Trump said it. It's just as bad as talking to somebody who's so pro-Trump you can't even fucking talk to him because, if you suggest that Trump isn't something awesome, you get a weird look at them like, wait a minute, like they're judging you like if you're anti-Trump all of a sudden or something. So it's pretty crazy now. I'm in on NPR. And I don't listen to the Rush Limbaugh stuff either, because that's got to be just as creepy the other way. I literally try not to listen to that if I can help it. I don't know where we got onto that. I think it was because of a comment that said about how the news was manipulative and whatnot. But I like where you're going, though, with that original thing when Cobalt jumped in and said about, what other things can we do or focus on, I guess, or accomplish or work towards in smaller pieces, I guess. I don't know if you added that or if I just added that.
Well, I was trying to say, like, what can we know what we've been doing, and I guess I'm just trying to repeat you. I guess I apologize, but kind of your thought process. We know what we've been doing, and we want to try to improve upon that because we know our adversaries are going to do the same thing. They're like, okay, what's the next move we can make to try to eliminate the 2A, right? So maybe can we play them at their own game? Can we say, okay, we know they're going to try this. What else can they try to? What tactics can they use to take it away from us, and how can we counter those? And the other point I was trying to make
you were going to say, like, counter them by saying, you know what, we don't even want the 2A anyway. You can have it.
What?
That might actually work in reverse psychology.
Yeah,
Put them off guard so much they just be like, "Oh shit, we won," and then we name them.
You don't even want 2A. Now we want them to have 2A. No, you got it.
We want them to have all the 2A, right? But the other thing I was trying to say was, like I said, what strengths can we play off of each other? We like in small unit tactics, we know that one guy's probably a little bit better at marksmanship, right, than another guy. So he can pin down the enemy. The automatic gunner can pin down the enemy while he takes out people one by one. So how do we play those kind of strengths with each other as far as 2A channels that are trying to make their voice heard?
I think that's great, and I try to do that with because what you just said in words succinctly. I've thought for a long time, so I've been working to help for myself just figure out who everybody is and then start sharing that because every time I dig into it, it's a bigger and bigger roadmap, and new people come on board all the time. So knowing who I keep saying, like, who's on the playing field, knowing who the players are. At least then, okay, like this person is in that region or this person does this, whatever, activism or grassroots or whatever, or like they have this history. And then, now we can be like, okay, they're more than likely they got this because they're over there and they've done it 100 times. So I don't even have to think about it unless they say something like, we need help. But I think that's what you're saying, right? Like, how do we know what each other can do so that we know what is needed over here or what they probably got over there?
Well, definitely, G. Most of the people that are big names in 2A, I learned from knowing you. Like, I wouldn't know any of them if I wouldn't have been part of that. So part of it is education of, like you're saying, as new people come along, keep track of those people, and maybe they'll have that different view or that different voice you were looking for.
I like the idea of multi-tactics. There's so many of us, that I think if we all did the same thing, we'd be very ineffective. No matter how good our strategy or how good we thought, our tactic was, I think we'd be very ineffective, right? If we were all doing the same thing. So I like all the different ideas. I really don't think there is any wrong one idea or bad idea when we're trying to get something done like pro 2A stuff. Everyone's going to have their slightly different twist and approach to it. And it doesn't have to be something vastly different. You can basically do the exact same thing as the guy next to you, but you have your just a very slight little twist to it that's just slightly different. I think that's great.
Yeah,
You know,
and the fact that two people are doing it means that the political strategists are looking out there and going, "Oh crap, there's two people that are frantically wailing their arms around. They're not doing it perfectly, but they're dancing." And who are they going to attract to this situation? Maybe we should back off or something.
and I think we'll get a lot more done than, like attacking from all different sides and different strategies, and just, and then if just one of those is effective, great. But if we're coming at them from 20 different ways and 10 of those are effective, even better, right? And if we're coming at them from a million different ways and 500,000 of those things are effective, I mean, like that's I think how we get at it. Is this. I really don't think if you're fighting for 2A, you're fighting for pro-gun rights and stuff. I don't think there is necessarily a bad strategy. I know some people come at it like, more vulgar, some people come at it more peaceful, some people come at it more, docile, and some people are more active. So like there's all sorts of different strategies, and I don't want to badmouth anyone's particular strategy at coming at, if they're basically fighting for the same end result. I don't want to say, hey, I don't think that's a good strategy, or I don't think you're doing it right, because as long as there's someone, as long as I'm doing it the way I think is right, that's all that I think really matters, right?
Yeah, I hear you. And the thing is, well, yeah, I agree with you 100%. We dropped somebody.
Cobalt.
Oh, hopefully I'll jump back in. Yeah, and I mean, I guess all I would ever add to that is that I want to, okay, and maybe you understand this more than some, because I keep bringing this up and I'm sure I sound like an asshole, but this isn't our first rodeo, right? And the one that I'm most familiar with is 13, but we've had little situations along the way, and certainly time has progressed super slowly since then, so we got to experience it all in the last however many years now. But I want to say everything you just said, only add and remember, because now is the time to, like everything you just said there, I mean, literally everything. It's just that at the end of it all, the people that didn't fight good, okay, no problem. Hey, you want some help to learn how to fight better? Or if not, no problem. But thanks for fighting, right? But the people that were like, oh, you didn't fight good, but is it because you were paying more attention of like pulling money out of this situation? Because you've been around, you've seen there's going to be people that are just here to exploit, either to do something, position themselves for the next time, break it in from the last time. Like there's just going to be a lot of potential to it's just going to be a lot of action.
Exploit the situation.
And I'm not going to say like I like the Churchill thing. You never get where you're going if you stop and throw a rock at every dog that barks. And I like that one because everywhere I walk, there's dogs barking at me and the dog. So I get that. Like you would never get where you're going if you took at everything. But when you get there, remember how many freaking dogs were barking. And if nothing else, just walk a different route home, or grab a sack of marbles and throw some freaking marbles on the way back, so that maybe the dog doesn't bark the next time. Because I don't think we need to sacrifice anybody or none of that crap. But I'm just sick of the exploiters who just get to ride on everybody else's shoulders, because you've been around long enough. I'm not jealous or nothing. I just don't like the idea that when activists come to the table and they get on board with this stuff, and they either experience getting crushed by somebody who is just using them, or exploiting the situation to make some scratch, and then boom, they're gone, or they do something weird and it's obvious that they didn't even really have it in there. They were, they would have left at the last minute and done something else, or they would have just bailed, or they have no real interest in the game. They're just playing. So, I'm saying, like, there's people, whatever. Yeah, there's people, there's all different scenarios. So there's people though, that'll come to the table and go, oh, I'm hanging out with a bunch of whatever. And then they'll just leave because they don't feel like it's worth putting the effort in, I think. Or maybe they go somewhere else and hopefully they're still fighting for 2A, but that's my concern, is that the people that are abusing and hurting, there's people that we knew back in 13 that were key players that were just there and doing stuff, and they're just gone. And I suspect that part of that is all different life situations, but part of that is because they saw the people that are continually getting bigger and bigger by all the shit that Yankee rages against. And you can just tell sometimes when you watch something, here comes the ad, or you know what I mean, like that kind of shit. Like that's the kind of stuff that gets on people's nerves, especially if you live in a state where you're not winning, or you don't see wins fast enough, and there's nobody to say, hey, we weren't guaranteed any wins. Like, if all you're seeing is success, these people making money, and then we haven't gotten to success yet, like we've seen too many people leave. And that's what I'm afraid of, is that there's those people, all these new gun owners, blah blah blah, but there's people that have had guns their whole lives, and they're like, I'll just go buy a car, or I'm going to go buy an RV, or I'm going to go buy a four-wheeler, I'm going to go buy a chainsaw. Like, just name any toy, and they just drop one hobby and go buy another hobby. And if you're not dedicated to 2A and you were only like, whatever, then we can't afford to keep losing everybody like that. And on the other hand, maybe I'm fucking crazy. Maybe there's not enough of those people to even spend this much time concerned about it.
No, man. I mean, how do you draw deep from rolling against the tide?
I don't think that it's not a fact that there's not enough of those people. I think that certain ones of those people are very good at playing a game and getting tons of followers, almost like, I would call it almost like a cult following, where eventually no matter what they say, how outlandish, how wrong, like, and I'm not talking about wrong about opinion, I'm talking like literally just straight up wrong in every single way, their followers are almost brainwashed, will still support and back them, being like, oh yeah, like you said, the sky's red, I believe you 100%, you're right. Like, and they'll fight tooth and nail for that, and they get so big that that's what I'm afraid of, is the people like that who get really big. I'm not worried about the guy with only 30 subs on YouTube or something who has the channel who's spouting off nonsense. I'm worried about the guy who has 300,000 subs spouting off nonsense. Like, that's what scares me.
What about the cats and kittens that got 1 million or 1 million plus who just stay mum? Wouldn't it be great to land one of the big fish?
No. Well, when you're sitting there minding your business, somebody says, hey, I have something that I think is important, so why don't you worry about it? Like, you've got a right to not give a shit. But I'm just saying,
totally.
let them. Like, they don't have to do shit. I'm just saying, whatever Dead Horse said before, I just added the caveat of, and remember, so that when it comes time to ever have to do this again, which we know is inevitable, in fact, it is going to have to happen often again, we're going to be doing this in front of kids, hopefully, so that they're learning by example how to deal with this as it happens over and over again, right? Like, we know that we've remembered who is out there just, selling hot dogs or T-shirts or something, and then we just ignore to pass by them the next time around. And then eventually, when no one's going to that hot dog vendor, you don't have to like put a sign out there or like worry about it. Everybody knows they're selling gross hot dogs or something.
So, Cobalt Barbecue, while you're helping to author the roadmap for your own children, where are you going to be guiding them based on what you've learned since you began your 2A journey?
Like 2A in general or guns in general?
Take either one, man.
Well, as far as the gun topic, what I've been trying to instill in my child is, they're tools just like any other thing, like any other tool daddy owns, and that you still have to be careful with them and you don't use them recklessly. And as I've said before in the chat, he's had a problem with, he points it at people, and he's nearly lost his guns to the trash can because of those mistakes. And that's something I have to really hammer home with him on the safety aspect, not only for not hurting other people, but I mean, how many stories have we heard of, oh, this child pointed a gun at a cop and now the child is dead? So that's, I guess, on the safety aspect, that's how I've been trying to handle that. On the 2A aspect, I've been trying to teach him, because somebody is poisoning his mind, saying that guns are bad, and that also Santa doesn't bring guns.
Oh yeah.
I think both my family and his mother's side has been doing that. But I basically told him, that's not true. Santa does bring guns because Santa brings what you want, and he doesn't care, what it is, as long as you're not using it for evil. So in a 2A aspect, it doesn't matter, what I'm trying to say to him is it doesn't matter what you own and what you use it for, as long as you're not using it for evil. You know what I mean? Like, the 2A covers everything, as far as I'm concerned, and my beliefs on it, and what I try to promote is that the 2A it covers everything. Machine guns, explosives, whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you use it for malicious intent, just like your First Amendment rights, and the Supreme Court even ruled on that too. I'm getting a little off on a tangent, but I promise I think it makes sense to my point. Is when the Supreme Court ruled on the First Amendment, they said that I think y'all are familiar with the yelling of fire in a movie theater kind of thing. You can yell fire in a movie theater, but you are responsible for every single injury or death that happens because of that. The First Amendment doesn't cover malicious use and the consequences of that. Same as the 2A covers everything you can say or own. In this case of the 2A, it covers everything you can own, but it doesn't cover your reckless or malicious uses of those items. So that's, I guess, what I'm trying to promote to my kid is don't believe the narrative that like the founding fathers never intended for people to own semi-automatics or fully automatics. No, that's not true. They were men of science and men of logic and knew that technology would progress through time. It wasn't just going to be single shot muzzle loaders. They knew, I mean, hell, even the puckle gun invent was existent back then. They knew technology would improve. 200 years before them, the height of firearms technology was literally a metal pipe that you lit with a piece of ember or something, like not even a matchlock back then. It was just a incense rod essentially. I don't know a good term for it. I apologize for that, but that's how I'm trying to promote 2A to my kid.
As you said that, and you said the way you said that the kids are getting taught like the wrong or getting taught incorrectly or whatever, made me think about it. I never really thought about that, but when we were little, we were taught the Constitution probably, or the concept that there's, country and all that stuff. Like whatever we were taught was like from history coming forward and in some sort of chronological order. What you're having to do is say, okay, well, you got taught something in school, however, and try to get that through to a kid where it's like, yes, we had all this stuff, but now we have to peel that onion, or now I have to cut out this one little piece. And what that's got to be doing to the kids is like, it's going to make the kids have to think like, who's right or wrong here, right? And then you think about, that made me think of like the new math and stuff. And that at school, they're like, when you learn this new math, kids, you're going to go home and your parents aren't going to know it because your parents are stupid and old fashioned and they only know old science and not our new fancy, improved, we figured it out science. So, your parents aren't going to know everything, right? They're telling them that in math class, and who knows what they're telling them in other classes about your crazy antiquated, ways. And then they get to this class and you're telling them, oh no, you're learning the Constitution wrong. It's really this old fashioned way. Is that a layer? Is that accidental, or is that part of the whole damn engineering?
I get what you're saying, G. I mean, unfortunately, in my case, with my kid being so young, there's only so much I can try to convey to him that he'd even understand.
Yeah, it's all about how fast he can figure it all out or wants to figure it out, right? Yeah.
My kid's 5, so I mean, he's not going to understand big brain concepts like that. So, but no, I agree with you. And to put it into more precise terms, what you're saying is we're having to undo indoctrination. They're being indoctrinated that these are bad, okay? Guns are bad, okay? Because they kill people. That's not true. It's the intention behind the user.
Hold on. I work at a school. I'm not buying any of that. I've never really seen that. I've worked in a lot of different schools. They haven't indoctrinated anybody in anything. They teach kindness and goodness. Is that are we guilty of the confirmation bias again that we just keep saying it? I've never seen it.
No, I'm gonna have to side a little bit with Cobalt here because I'm not gonna sit there and say it's all schools or all teachers woods, but I distinctly remember this is probably 10 years ago or so. My sister came home from school, and I mean she was in like first grade at the time.
So you're going to
And,
give anecdotal data, and we're making large judgments about an entire system.
Right.
But let's say I'm
just
going to give you multiple examples that are based on my personal experience. Again, I can't speak for the entire system. However, I can say for what's going on in my area, this is what's happening.
Right, but we're just saying there's a whole bunch of schools all over the place, and we're jumping. Is it jumping to conclusions, or is it confirmation?
Well, you make a fair point. I should say there are some institutions that are trying to do that. I should be fair.
I think colleges are 100% doing that. But
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Really.
I totally see that in college, not so much in elementary school, maybe not so much in junior high. I think that in high school there are definitely some, because I've experienced that in high school with my kids. Teachers basically really pushing their opinion on the kids, and if a kid, shows up with the Trump hat or something, like the teacher all of a sudden is at their throat about it and forcing their political beliefs on them. I've experienced that myself with my kids. And in college, I think it's a big deal, but not so much in elementary or junior high. I don't think that is a common occurrence. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I don't think it's the same. I don't think it really starts till about high school and then way more in college.
It depends on the region. Like if you're in a small town, for example, if you're in a small town high school in Texas, they're probably going to be a little more lenient towards those kind of things. But if you're in like Dallas, inner city of Dallas in a high school, they're probably going to say, oh, you like guns? You're a fucking terrorist. It just depends on where you're at.
That's what I was going to say. It's probably regional, and then like the teachers too, because you could have a school that's like doesn't care, and then this teacher cares one way or the other, right? Like it's just it's a big thing. It's a lot
from my personal experience, and this is just my experience, so it's prone to bias. But hell, even in a small town Texas college, high school, I was very interested in guns, very pro gun. It was very well known, and they used that against me this is a little bit of Cobalt story time. So just bear with me for a minute. But there was a senior prank that went around that all of the people who didn't like certain kids decided, we're going to make up a story about the outcasts of the school. And a high school that was only about 500 people, big, that's not that many people, but they decided we're going to make up a rumor based on some of the stuff they've talked about and their interest that they're going to threaten to bomb and shoot up the school. It was so bad that the police from not only my town, but the neighboring town got involved and had to investigate. But that's the kind of shit that you run into. That kind of indoctrination, not even indoctrination, just discrimination.
Well, and
it's not even
as a tool like a fire alarm, except a fire alarm you can point at somebody, or like it's like they're using it like a mechanism. So,
and I never once even said like any of those things too. So that's the even fucked up part.
I like that, Cobalt. So now I'll change my mind a little bit. I will say, the discrimination exists in high school and maybe a little bit in junior high or elementary, and the indoctrination doesn't start till college. That's the way I see it personally. That's when I think that they really try to indoctrinate you is in college. But I really
you just need to go to a good college like Tarleton State University, where there were flyers on the wall about winning an AR-15. So I mean,
but
I think Cobalt was talking to us about something, and I think I started it right by saying something about the kid at school or the way the schools were. I don't think that was the topic, though. I think I inadvertently took us off into something there. So I don't know. Did I cut you off? Or are you about to say something else?
I was about to say something, but so I was going to go back to what I was trying to say a little earlier. So, my sister comes home from school one day, and I was in the process of cleaning a rifle, and she walks into the living room where I'm cleaning this rifle, and just immediately breaks down sobbing. And I'm like, "What in the world?" And I look at my mom, and my mom's like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And my mom gets her to calm down, and she was terrified of the gun because she was taught at school that guns are bad and they're gonna kill people, and she can't be around them. And like I said, she was in first, maybe second grade. I can't remember the exact grade, but she's very young, 7 or 8 years old. Um, and that was a direct result of what she was taught at school. And it's not like she wasn't ever around them. You know, it wasn't uncommon for me to have a gun out cleaning it or anything like that. And then even recently with my own children, a couple of years ago, my oldest, so she would have been 7 at this point. She comes home the one day and is telling me, "Oh, they taught us this stuff about guns at school." I'm like, "Yeah, what did they tell you?" And they weren't necessarily bad things, because they're like, "Well, if you see a gun, you need to go get an adult." I was like, "Yeah, that's good." I was like, but then it was, it turned into the guns are bad thing, and you should never touch them. I was like, yes, you should never touch them unless daddy hands it to you, says this is okay. And you're like, no, they said that under no circumstances, never ever. And I'm like, no. I was like, you go to school and you learn. I was like, but when you come home and what daddy tells you, I was like, that's what goes here. And then I had to go through the same process again with my middle child, Jada Lynn, who is now 7 this year.
All right.
Well,
Well,
like
now
I said
we're
before
going
with
to
schools,
anecdotal stuff. Go ahead. We were saying. Yeah.
I was
I was
just
going to say, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say so. Now, and even I'm guilty of this. So, like we're saying the school and stuff, but really we should be saying a specific teacher, right?
Right.
Because
Or
when I
Likely very young
Yeah.
girl. 98% of
and what if they'd never been challenged? What if they did this? Yeah, they're young. They did this. They've never been challenged. You go in and go, how dare you? They're challenged. They never do it again. And then if we're going to go around and perpetrate it as though this is the way schools are, it was really an instance that self-corrected, and we just knew about the blip. And I don't want to give them an inch because F them. Because here's what I was thinking, and I'll let Cobalt go again. But I do want to get off of schools because we're talking about 2A. Is that I don't think this is the last thing you guys are going to be talking about with kids in schools. I suspect with everybody running the government right now, schools are just going to get worn out like a piece of metal been bent back and forth, right? Schools are about to get wailed on, aren't they?
Again.
In a good way.
It depends on the teacher. I think it comes down to the actual teacher, not necessarily the school, because at the end of the day, the teachers might have a certain curriculum they have to teach based on the school district, but it's still up to the teacher on how they go about that and what opinions they express.
I'm not talking about that.
No, lesson plans, man. You got to submit lesson plans. You have to have
talking about any of that. I'm talking about with Democrats in office, schools are about to either get flooded with money or flooded with rules. I'm just saying that 2A is not going to be their only issue going forward. They're going to have
likely both.
What I was going to say is the way we counter a lot of that is, like I said, with my kid, the way I teach him that they're just tools. And I think that most of y'all probably agree or implement, those of you with children implement the same tactic, is they're just like power tools. They are dangerous if you misuse them. That's why, as a child, you shouldn't use them without adult supervision of somebody who knows what they're doing with them. Like my skill saw, for example, or not really skill saw, but circular saw. I just call it skill saw. I mean, even I could chop off my own goddamn hand with that if I'm not careful. Just like a gun. If I'm not careful with it and I don't follow the safety rules with handling such a thing, I could shoot myself. But it's very easy to learn those safety rules. But as a child, unless I'm with you, you are not given enough trust to do that. So it's not that the gun is evil. It can't be evil. It doesn't have a mind. It has no willpower. But with inexperienced hands, bad things can happen. So that's why personally, I like the Eddie Eagle thing in school. I remember that. And, but I don't like them saying it's an evil object because of, well, what it is. No, it can't be capable of evil. It has no moral code. It's an inanimate object. And that's what we have to hammer home. And if we have to, we need to tell that to the teachers and say, hey, if you're not going to teach properly, we're going to give you curriculum to do so because you obviously don't know how to do your damn job. I'm not saying that's all teachers, but I think we can all agree there are a few out there that don't care and just have their own personal bias on it. And so we have to counteract that bias because they're teaching wrong.
Right.
No doubt.
We'll be done with schools because it's done. And then so I don't I don't know where that all came out of. I think Cobalt was saying something, and then I brought up the one thing you happened to mention about a school out of it and pulled that whole thing and made a big mess. So I wanted to go back to, because we're actually talking here about how to evolve the conversation about 2A, how to be better prepared for the eventualities that we're about to see and whatnot. Something about what somebody was saying earlier made me think of sort of triage, I guess, and sort of level of skill set. So if we've got other things like bakers or, I don't know, think of anything, television repair, accounting, I don't know, everything's going to have the people that, you know, the new people to the occupation, which are going to be like doing the gopher work, you know, go for this, go for that, bring it over here. And then you're going to have the people that are, you know, competent and doing probably a lot of it. And then you've got the experts and then the teachers. And, you know, there's going to be these different levels that everything comes out to. So when we're talking about getting something done, anything, accomplishing work with a bunch of volunteers, what if it was first aid? What if a meteor had hit the earth and we were like in slow motion, we were trying to figure out how do we deal with this thing that's now on fire? It knocked over buildings, people are hurt, need food, right? All this stuff to organize. And it was a first aid situation and not a gun right situation. We would be thinking, okay, we need to have somebody out there to apply bandages, and then we'll need somebody else to go drive and get water, right? We're going to need somebody else to set up a tent. We're going to need 5 tents. So that takes 6 people, right? We're going to come up with tasks and some sort of, what's that? I might keep saying triage. I don't know if that's the right damn word, but you know what I'm saying? Like whatever that was in MASH when they would run up to the helicopters and start figuring out who to fix first, you know? And then when that happened, there was the helicopter drivers, there was the surgeons, there was the dudes yanking people on stretchers and knew when a surgeon said this or moved his hand or looked at him funny, you know, you knew what order to put that guy in the prep room for the OR. You know, there's these levels. So with that in mind, if it was a first aid situation, everyone would have a trauma kit, right? Everyone would probably be urged to have a first aid kit or vice versa. Some people are satisfied to have fucking Band-Aids and don't think a tourniquet's realistic. So, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's going to have something of their own. And then there's probably going to be like a first aid kit in a car, or maybe, you know, in every neighborhood, there's going to be a certain amount of first aid kits that are, you know, maybe a scout troop level, right? You know, like maybe the company level, somebody brought one home or something, or it's in a rental van or something. You know, there's something that's a little bit more supplies and not just one of everything. But then, you know, the fire department nearby in that town's going to have an ambulance and a whole bunch of supplies in a room. And then there's going to be hospitals and they're going to have all kinds of supplies. And when you really get into it, there's going to be all the old elderly care and sports injuries that are going to have tons of supplies that aren't necessarily, you know, incorporated into the emergency supplies. And then you got the companies that supply all of them. And then you got the manufacturers that build the fucking shit. So you've got all this stuff in different layers, and it all comes into play when necessary. And when you need to do it for something like bleeding and breathing and, you know, people under heavy objects, it all comes into play in a coordinated effort. What if we do that or apply that to 2A, where there's going to be your people who are like, huh? Except they're capable. And then there's going to be your people that got the effective, you know, what's equivalent of a 2A tourniquet, where they're running around and saying, slapping a current kid down and saying, you know, this guy needs help from a level I can't offer, but here, this guy needs the help, or this lady, you know, is bleeding, I just can't tell where, and then an EMT comes up, right? Like that first person, the Good Samaritan, you know, lets the EMT know. An EMT can look at it and evaluate at a professional level and say, we need a surgeon, we need a paramedic, we need ambulatory tech, right? That gets done. And then those people come into play. So how do we apply all this to 2A where, like, you know, I'll shut up, so let you guys do. I just set it up. You guys can finish it and solve it, because I think we just solved it right there. Actually.
So what you're trying to say, from what I'm gathering, is basically different levels of expertise in arguing the 2A.
Maybe like a volunteer fire department for 2A. So like, how do we all know what to come in and do when necessary, and then go back to our normal lives? Maybe some of us take some kit home, and some of us drive an ambulance home, and the rest of us are just know what to do. But I don't know if I helped explain that better.
So what I'm getting from, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Is part of that, I'm sorry, I'll just be real quick. Is part of that knowing where you fit into that? Like, for instance, G is a trained paramedic. So he can do things that I can't do, even if we have the same equipment, because I just don't know how. So I should stick with the things that I know how to do, like talking to
and how often and that kind of shit, right? Like, exactly. And but I don't know. Maybe it's something that can be learned. I'm not a paramedic, by the way. I went to school to be EMT and never did it. But I know what you're saying. And then, but that's the thing is, I could sit down with my EMT workbook, and you could all be EMTs. I mean, it's literally one level above going to a Red Cross class. It's just that there's more to it. It's a big, thick book, but it's nothing that is common sense. So it's something that could be taught, and there's got to be 2A equivalents, right?
So your 2A equivalent there would be basically just, if you're just going off a workbook example, well, here's the laws for the 2A, and here's why we think they are wrong. But the step above that would be somebody who has more experience with, say, the founding fathers' idea of the 2A, somebody more educated in that role. And I want to try to get more educated at some point in the viewpoints of the founding fathers based on their own writings. So that would be your step up above that. And right. I guess the step
somebody who's like aware that, like, well, like you're aware that the Second Amendment is the result of a bunch of deliberation and knowledge from a bunch of people who really thought about it, and that comes from resources. So you might be aware of all that, but you haven't had time to figure it all out yet. But there is somebody who does, and if you can be that person who goes, oh, you know what we need? That guy who knows everything that I can't think of right now, but he knows the answers. And then boom, you bring that person with where they're needed, and then everybody learns. And now that's
again, it's more skillful orators of a topic. So your basic kind of guy would be the guy that's like, well, the 2A is a 2A, right? So we have that. Well, the guy that's above that would be the immediate on the scene, kind of paramedic person saying, yes, the 2A is a 2A because this, this, and this. And then the person above that, well, here's why it's this, this, and this because of what the founding fathers originally intended. And the person above that would be, this is why it's not just what they intended, it's why they intended that, the main ideal behind it, i.e. for the 2A example, because they recognize that a citizen that is disarmed has no true voice against the government, and a citizenry to back the 1A, because I kind of take Yankee's view of it, that the 1A and the 2A work upon each other or build upon each other. A citizenry that's armed but has no voice can't rebel if a government became tyrannical. So, I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. I think if I'm not getting the right message here, then just let me know.
Yeah, I mean, you took it in one specific pathway. It could also be like if somebody's used to talk, like Walt is good for talking lawyer words at people who are coming from the whatever kind of talking he does, perspective, where this guy, whereas like somebody who's a teacher like Woods is better at giving us an angle or an approach to talk to a teacher, right? So instead of us going, here's how I had an interaction with a teacher and you should listen to it, he can be like, here's how teachers are. Or better yet, a whole group of teachers could get together and go, you know what we're sick of hearing? And then come up with a way for him to go, either here's a little pamphlet you can take home and shut up and figure out about how teachers are, or, you know, learn a lesson from everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's lots of different ways that we can use our skill sets, our experiences and whatnot to cross collaborate. I don't know what the word would be, but that whole idea of like
to work off each other as a team.
Yeah, to know that we all got strengths and weaknesses. Again, just kind of being aware of each other, and I think that's
it's like what I told Walt earlier today in private chat with him was based on the 2 videos he and I had done, not together, but he had done like I said earlier in this live chat, he had done a video on the 17th armed protest thing, and I had done my own. And I told him that the difference in our 2 styles is pretty apparent. He's got the eloquence, he's got the logic behind it, and explains that logic. He's got the tact. He does all that. And my video is more like, hey, motherfuckers, don't be a fucking traitor. That's basically the difference. So I kind of get what you're saying there, actually.
And then both are needed, right? It's not like there's any fewer or more, because honestly, if there's one person over here that gets one message and everybody else is over there getting that message, then it was necessary and useful to have both. And there's use to know how many perspectives there are. There's use to know, like, okay, this was effective and that wasn't. And then it's good for the people that are sitting there all nice and drinking tea with their pinkies up all the time to get yelled at once in a while. And it's good for the people that yell all the fucking time to sit down and drink some tea, you know, and act civilized, so that at least you can understand how we should figure out. Actually, let me think of it this way. What I'm explaining there is that we should or would be better off if we experienced each other as gun owners, like our approaches and our situations as gun owners, because we have to also do the same thing for the other side. The only way we ever win is when we understand their side and we can cut them off at the pass, so to speak. You know, oh, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they're coming at us with the same old. And we could say, oh, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And you think this and that. And once they go, oh, crap, he does understand, or she does understand my position, and they still have their position. You know, I was expecting them to just bounce like bumper cars, and you know, we would accomplish something by bouncing off each other. But if they come into our bumper car and say, oh, I understand from your area what you might be seeing, but I still have my thing, and you want to hear what it is or sit in my bumper car, they're not ready for that. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know where the hell I'm going with that anymore. But yeah, having multiple people know what we're doing, so that when we need them, we've got either a contact or a way to connect, or somebody in between, an intermediate that can help play that role, and then bring the adequate skills or tools to the task at hand. Like I say, then we all get smarter. You know, once an EMT watches a paramedic do something 3 times, that EMT knows how to do that. Right? And they're competent. Now, they're not supposed to do it maybe, and they're not going to go doing it every time, but when it saves a life, the paramedic's going to go, right on, dude, and nobody's going to take them to jail, right? Like, that just sort of happens. Like when a carpenter learns how to do something plumbing, like the unions don't get all mad, and the carpenter doesn't start doing that. It's just that the next time something leaks, the plumber's like, thanks, man. Like, now I don't have to replace all this, and you don't have to replace the floor tomorrow, right? So everybody wins, and you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of shit, except now put 2A in there instead of plumbing or whatever.
We build off each other's skill sets.
Yeah, and then just get some practice doing so, because then we become an insurmountable adversary that the other side is going to be like, or at least they have more tendency to be like, ugh, these people are difficult to deal with. They used to be really easy. And I think that's one of the advantages we have, is we have been so fucking easy. It's always been a certain amount of people. It's always been the NRA. And I feel justified in saying that, even though I'm knocking on wood, because they still, even in their freaking wordings of these 7 atrocious bullshit things they stuck up for pre-registration today, they act like the NRA is their enemy. So they're so dim-witted and stupid. I'm pretty sure they're just pulling shit out of boilerplate, pulling it out of a drawer, dusting it off, putting today's date on it, passing it to their staff, We saw evidence in Nevada when they sent literally a carbon copy of Oregon, and it didn't work legally there. So
I'm going to be the uninformed idiot here, and if it's not pertinent, then you don't have to repeat it if y'all already talked about this. But what are you talking about?
I guess I'm talking about the ballot initiative strategy that worked in California successfully. They used it in Oregon and then in Washington. I forget which order. I think it was both. I think they did it with one thing in Oregon, and then they did it in Washington. It worked, and they've done it successfully in Oregon since. So basically,
the 1639 bait and switch.
A lot of those, but I mean, that's the one that's the most recent that everybody knows about. But basically, the concept, from what I understand, is Bloomberg takes his money and goes to an area, region, town, state, and says to the marketing department firms, like, who's the biggest marketing firm? Okay, I'll buy all of the top 3 marketing firms. You all just take this message and apply it different ways, but create a scenario where there's a ballot initiative because guns are bad, right? And they do whatever stuff needs to be done, and then you see it happen. And then that worked, so they just kept repeating it or whatever. And then when it was repeated in Nevada, I think 3 years ago now, I'm trying to remember, it was a while ago, but not too long ago, is the most recent one. When it happened there, the Attorney General, and it happened by ballot initiative, and it passed, and it was universal background checks, I think.
Okay, so I think you just promoted a giant opportunity for us. Strategically. So we need to, and excuse me if I'm jumping the gun here and getting a little too enthusiastic, but in The Art of War, Sun Tzu says, or I'm not going to quote Sun Tzu, but there is a part of there about the turn spy. And so what we need is somebody in those kind of marketing.
A part about what?
The turn spy. So what we need in those marketing kind of places, we need people that are very pro 2A that will play their role for that kind of thing and give us the information about, like, the Bloomberg issue that you just spoke of. And then they'll play their role, but they'll keep feeding us information and maybe even push out misinformation saying, for like 1639, wasn't it like, don't you want schools to be funded or some shit like that? I forget what Yankee said it was, but
something horrible like that. And we do have
literally called safe schools.
The thing is, we have that. It's just that because of the nature of it, it's not like, oh, you go talk to Samantha, and she's the one that has the in with moms or something. So that they exist, but it's like you leave a mark on a mailbox or whatever, on a third Thursday, and then they call you a payphone type of thing, from what I understand. So it's not
it's not as
we
like
all know
TV
who the
clandestine, of course, but
yeah, if we all know who the spy is, they're going to know who the spy is, though. So it's like that's a small group thing, that small squad tactics thing, right? That's going to be very hard to do on a large scale, because if I see someone,
I got to stop this. It's small group tactics or small unit tactics. A squad is a squad. So I mean, there can technically be a small squad, but I've never heard anybody say small squad. Small unit tactic.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, that's we would, like, if we all knew who the spies were, they would all know who the spies were. And if I see someone who I think's on the left,
more of people that subscribe to newsletters or go to a meeting and then give us intel. That's all I'm thinking. So they wouldn't know who in the meeting, but they know somebody was there. Yeah.
Yeah, but seeing like how. Man, I think that would be hard to accomplish. Like, I don't know, like how would that work?
We've got that. There's people that subscribe to all the antis newsletters, and there's people that will go to the antis meetings. And we actually have more than just people that attend, what would you say, like clandestine? We have people that go and say, we're pro-gun and we're going because we'd like to give you, the other side of the thing. And they're, it's not like they're always treated the same way. It all just depends on the situation, right? But then at the same time, there's usually I think I'm confident in saying there's almost always somebody showing up who's, on our side and is just dressing up in sheep's clothing so that we have their intel, at least what they're given their marching orders to troops. Because it's not like these are, this is just an organization that you can join for $40 a year or whatever, and then decide to show up to their meeting or whatever. It's as long as you don't show up with a thing that says like, I actually like guns, haha, then how are they ever going?
No, but he was also saying stuff about like, you know, pushing like false information and stuff.
Oh, I don't know about all that. Yeah, I just know that I see the newsletters and stuff, and we see the stuff like posts every once in a while. So I know a couple of people that must know people that go to these meetings. But no, I don't know about the background stuff.
Isn't that kind of why we listen to NPR once in a while, G?
I listened to NPR on accident, and because I did like it back in the olden days. There were like some game shows and things that were like creative. And I mean, if I listen to regular radio, it's just always boring politics news. At least I haven't found a radio station that isn't boring politics news most of the time, unlike AM when you actually listen to words. But the NPR would talk about something interesting once in a while, you know, random out of nowhere, something interesting. But now every time it's something interesting, it's like, except for global warming or because of Trump, it's like, it's not even. But anyway, I used to listen to it because of that, not because of.
I agree. Definitely, you have to watch the verbs, like versus went, and like they'll use invaded or like
yeah.
It's the words they choose. You were absolutely right. They're wordsmiths, but my local one has some local programming that's just about like Tacoma, and it really doesn't cover any super lefty weird stuff. It's just like they're going to build a thing, and here's where they're going to build it. But I imagine it's like anything. Different regions are going to have very different NPR stations.
Well, actually, I think they are all pretty much piped out at this point. I say that because when I drive around, it's one of the only things you find is like lots of church, and that's all. I think I don't listen to them all, so I'm thinking those are regional or local, right? The church stuff, and then there's your country, and I could care less. I don't know country, so I wouldn't know. But I don't think those are country superstations or anything. Those are probably kind of regional or something. And then news. Right, and then NPR. So the news will be Rush Limbaugh or something like that. Type in, you know, whatever's in between Rush Limbaugh type of news. So I can't even think. But it's not like Fox or CNN. It's just like, what the hell is the news on the radio called? Anyway, some news syndication thing. So they just plug in a thing that they get. So NPR was the only thing that was like consistent. You know, it would be the NPR show or channel, and then it would be one of like, I don't know how many shows there are, but 24 shows maybe on NPR. You know, there's game shows on the weekend. There's a couple of interview shows, and then all the mopey news shows during the week. So I would always inevitably get one of those. Now, you're right. There can be like local news and maybe a local show, but NPR seems to be just mostly the syndicated national stuff. And maybe the difference is like between Nebraska and Kansas. The difference between Nebraska and Kansas is like, they subscribe to the first 12 in the menu, and they subscribe to the 9 through 18 in the menu. So it's just a different set of options from the same menu. I heard, I guess the day after all that stuff happened, they were the local radio here that was just playing old-fashioned music from like the 70s. They got on and were like just like you say, the words that they chose, like the Capitol was invaded by, what the hell were they calling them? And I'm like, seriously, how can the hell can you possibly say that? There wasn't even a gun. Like they said it was like
insurrection and all.
Insurrectionists. Yeah. I'm like, how does that happen? How do you walk into a place and like what, a window was broken and whatever, and then the way that they were saying it, I was like, you either don't offer any scrutiny to what you're reading, and you have no interest in, you're willing to regurgitate that. So I was like, fuck it, I'm listening to some other new channel now.
My favorite was that they were terrorists. And I'm like, well, if they were terrorists, they're not very good ones.
Yeah, they were the shittiest ones. And
I could have done a lot more with my little Ford Fiesta if I had actually tried.
Well, that's the thing. It's that they were offered no resistance, really. So that's not scrutinized, I don't think. But I don't know. I haven't looked at anything other than like what they said on the radio and then listening to other people. Definitely what we talked about before. I depend on other people to look at the news, and then I watch some of the live conversations and glean what's going on in the news from that. And I realize that most of those people are like addicts. They have to listen to news all the time. And if it isn't extreme enough or dire enough, then they look for more news that's more dire and extreme and then talk about that.
Well, that same day, I was actually at work when all that was going on. I literally just got off at about 3 p.m. Central Time. And at about 2, my grandfather started texting me. He's like, you need to get home now, and you need to lock the door and be unarmed. I was like, the fuck's happening? Are we under attack? He's like, yes. Well, I got off work, and I got on my Discord and saw that Walt's server was hopping off. Popping off, not hopping off, but popping off. And I literally texted onto the group. I was like, what the absolute fuck happened while I was at work? And he let me know what happened. And looking into it a little more, I was like, this is just a fucking clown show. All this is a clown show. The only issue I had with the whole thing was when they removed the American flag to replace it with the Trump flag. That I definitely take issue with.
Yeah, well, what's worse is that I didn't see it, but how the hell can that happen amongst people? Like, who the fuck is going to let that happen at the Capitol? Like that, you can't that can't happen near me. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is that happening? Like, I could see somebody wanting to do it or an instigator deciding that's a great idea to make them look like a bunch of dumb shits. But
I mean, if I had been there in that crowd that decided to do that, I would have taken that guy to the side and beat the ever-loving shit out of him.
Just like when I seen the thing where the dude was wailing on a window or something, and then somebody in the crowd stops him from wailing in the window. Because, yeah, as soon as you're like, wait a minute, that's not part of what we're doing here. Just like in the other ones earlier in the year when somebody's knocking out windows and everybody's like, this person's not part of us. You know, that's just, well, let's not get into it. That's the ambush.
Basically, we don't support fascists.
That's also the thing that a bunch of other chats are going to talk about.
That's all they want you to talk about. That's why they throw those details out there. That's why they have the live stream, and it's not like they are creating it or acting it. It's just that they're exploiting it. They're able to go just kick back, let people watch the video, and well, you all experienced it. So yeah, it made Angelina run away, and Barbecue ran away from it. So I had thrown out the idea though of having like some sort of like levels of, I don't know what to call that, just slots, like levels. So like just to say, the first responder, the first aid kit, the EMT, the paramedic, and the doctor, just to have levels or whatever that's called. And then, or like levels of awareness or competency or
so let's start what goes in the first aid kit.
Well, I'm just going to throw that. We don't have to solve it. We're 3 hours into a chat, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I just
go on its own. I like the analogy, and I like how you go from a first aid kit to a doctor. I think everybody can identify with that.
I think so too. I think it applies to what we're about to, because I really think what we're about to deal with is like we're just standing here and we're all competent. We're having like a picnic because we're all sitting around getting fat and lazy and just enjoying the good times, really. And especially comparatively the good times. And then now we're started seeing mortars start hitting all over. And typically it's like one mortar, and then we all get upset and we all wait because there's no more. And then we all look at the one mortar hole, and then we stand around wondering why a mortar was used instead of an RPG and blah, blah, blah. And this time it's like mortar, 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 and they're reloading. So we could sit around and do the old, but that's to our disadvantage, right? We need to keep moving. So yeah, that's the whole idea of the triage part of it. I just want to leave it there, and yeah, throw that out as like something to grow or something to just bat around. But I also didn't want to stall the chat there. Go ahead.
Well, so you mentioned like we're getting shelled by mortars. So are we seeing the enemy move? I mean, what's their movement? Can we see where they're coming from? What's their tactic?
No, I think that's a great point. And what we're seeing is the okay, so there's it's not quite a stalemate, but there's been this like kind of a back and forth moving front that's not quite trench lines, but it's kind of dug in. Every once in a while there's a victory or a change in the geometry of the front, but it's basically out there in this field. And what we're seeing is a change in regime or command or a push in that line, and it moved. But the mortars are coming from the old ass mother effers that I don't know. Reading my own chat, the old ass motherfuckers that been waiting chomping at the bit, and they throw mortars anytime they can. It's all they can do, and they're in that same position. And as soon as we have to return fire, we know exactly because they never move. So that's a great point. I think that what we saw here is the first salvo. Is that the way to say it? The first barrage, and it's from their oldest, like, parade people, the kids that are learning. It's like, no, it's not the kids though. It's the elderly.
It's their elite guard. It's their elite guard.
No, not the elite. No, this is like the rickety old skeletons that, as an honor, they let them take the first barrage, even though they're basically ceremonial almost. But in our case, it's ridiculous to suggest any of this stuff is ceremonial. That it could just as easily be like, yeah, let's stab them with your old crickety, stupid poison knife, and not the cool dagger that they built to be to use, that we just stole. Let's not use their weapons that are awesome that we paid for. Let's use the old crickety dumb one that's just symbolic and use that, because who knows what the fuck they're thinking. But I really think this is just.
So you're saying they're hitting us with the mortars, which is like your 1639 style stuff. So we see the enemy moving. I'm assuming we have no fog or smoke or cover that we can't see what their infantry is doing. What is their infantry doing? You say they're entrenching.
I don't think they're moving.
What is their avenue of attack on us?
I don't think they're moving. I think they just changed their guard. Like, they just changed their boss, and they took over the move, the next move. Like, we had the move, and now it's theirs. So it's not like they're moving so much that we have to worry about it. In fact, that's an advantage of ours, is they're completely static. And I think they're so confident that they're probably not even aware that they should be moving, and they're not.
So we're in trench warfare. We're in trench warfare. So where's their weak spot that we can exploit?
I love the they're all over the place, and I'll let other people throw in if you want. But I mean, we could get into it. But one of them is they went after, in front of everybody at Christmas, they went after veterans' ability to shoot the gun that they got wounded using. You know what I'm saying? Like, they went after the worst thing ever at Christmas, and it couldn't be more of an obvious, like, FU slight. We have all these new gun owners who we can appeal to in so many new ways. So, I mean,
are you referring to the pistol braces, or what are you referring to?
Yeah, the pistol brace thing is just recent.
Okay, so I don't know. I kind of feel like, after hearing some things from other people, I feel like that was kind of like not necessarily a moot point, but not exactly a strong point.
Doesn't matter. You said how many angles? I mean, start racking them up. We got angles. I mean,
I get that. But you can have all the angles you want, but if you're trying to fight offensively, which is what we need to do, not just defensively to where they keep pushing us on the back foot, but actually push forward.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lazy attack would be great, but it doesn't.
It's not a lazy attack. That's not a lazy attack. That's an attack they've never seen before. From a Karen saying, "How dare you?" They've never had that attack. And that was
I love that analogy. I really do.
And that wasn't we're going to slice them after an atrocity. Like, we're going to require them to justify murder and violence and atrocity because we're trying to take their property. And as they're standing there trying to defend, the concepts of righteousness and blah, 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 we're going to just slit their throat and walk away. Like, no, they did something and they walked home with their tail between their legs, and we got up and said, like, no, you don't get to walk home with your tail between your legs.
So they tried assaulting our trench from that perspective, and we repulsed them. So now, how do we actually push that advantage and take their trench away from them and hold that trench? What's our offensive? Where are we going with that? So ignore that whole pistol brace issue. What's our next move that's not that? What other thing are they trying to attack?
Well, again, we know that they've thrown out this first barrage, and it's old, and we're just bullshitting or whatever, and these people are scared to join in on it. But they threw out some stuff that's old news, like some old stuff with new dates on it. So we have to first figure out. There's no way to interpret that. We have to assume, though, that it's just the beginning of a massive onslaught that's going to be more capable or competent.
Okay, so
how do
here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to bring up.
We gather our resources. We try to figure out how many offensive or offensive ways we can, and then apply as much.
So we know they're going to try to go after. We know that their objective, at least immediate, is probably going to be internet gun sales, right? And advertising of that. So how do we combat that?
No, if you want to go into specifics, we know that specifically they went after punish safety by, or increase safety by punishing and deterring trafficking. I mean, that could be interpreted as online, but that could also be determined as 6 other things. So it's a much bigger.
So let's
one.
elaborate on that.
But hold on, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. So that's all I'm saying is we have, just in the first salvo, we have 7 distinct ones. And one of them, let me find this craziest one, a 7-day waiting period before a semi-automatic firearm, a silencer, armor-piercing ammunition, or a large capacity ammunition magazine. So that's so ridiculous. It's laughable. Do you spend time on it, or is it the razor blade on the back of the brush that you don't see and it kills you? So
I say it's the razor blade because, especially with the armor-piercing ammunition, I could see it both as, it's not really an issue, but at the same point, it is, because what is armor piercing? Because 5.56 can penetrate armor. A rifle round can penetrate different types of armor.
You can't take your definition and apply it anymore. We know that in the past they apply whatever definition they want, and they've already moved it from steel plate to soft armor. So it doesn't matter any specifics. We have to be much faster than that and assume the worst always. So yeah, if they say anything about armor piercing ammunition, it means bimetal. It means an armor, any kind of 2 metal projectile.
So it defines metal high velocity projectiles, which is pretty much all rifle rounds. So they're trying to say that rifle rounds are not going to be illegal. So how do we fight that? Are we going to say that 308 is not legal now because it can penetrate soft body armor, even though hunters the world over have used it? 30-06 is now illegal. 5.56 is still even a hunting round. You can use it for armor.
We're talking about a detail of one aspect of 7 different things in the first salvo. So I hear what you're saying, but the time to debate the specifics of their irrational garbage is over. The reason they throw irrational garbage at us is because they know that some of us are either looking to waste time talking about the multiple eventualities that come out of a garbage thing like HR 125, the one we're talking about right now. But you forgot the part where it says a 7-day waiting period before a semi-automatic firearm. That includes every semi-automatic firearm, 7-day waiting period. Just the implementation of that would cost millions.
Do we not have examples, though? Do we not have examples in actual recorded instances of people who have died because of a waiting period? Say a woman that is no. Let's hear me out. So, do we not have examples of women who were abused by ex-boyfriends, husbands, etc., that had a so-called restraining order that meant nothing to the ex-husband, and they came after them, and while they were waiting for a gun to defend themselves, they were killed?
So you are talking.
We can use that. We can use that against that, saying the restraining orders have actually killed more people, or not restraining orders. The waiting periods have actually killed more people than the cooldown periods would potentially save. The cooldown periods are ridiculous. We attack them on that merit alone.
We've been using that ever since.
Understand what I'm saying is you're talking about a potential answer to one element of one of 7 in the first barrage. So this is exactly what they want us to try, or to have to address each of these things. And that's where it's the incremental step, walking up the hill. No one is going to start walking up the hill and immediately be at the top of the hill. At least the only way that ever happens is once you've walked up that hill so many times, you just don't even think about how you walked up the hill so damn many times, you're at the top of the hill. But, until we get so used to fighting this stuff that it's just habit. But that's the deadly whatever consequence of the way that they're doing this. We don't know if this is the first barrage and this is all we have to defend. We don't know if this is a ruse. This is the first barrage of duds so that we all scurry and they figure out where our bunkers are, and now the real ones are targeted. We don't know if this is one of thousands, hundreds, realistically, when they own everything. On the other hand, we don't know if this is the feeble fart of dust that they'll ever do, because they're going to be so bogged down with trying to deal with everything else. So how do, I hear what you're saying, like, how do we address the one element of the one thing and the one HR whatever law that they're sending across the bow, but we're not China. We don't have an infinite amount of hands on the ground or feet on the ground that can say, you three take this and pursue it. You three take the element of this and pursue it. And then some sort of hierarchy where we, okay, we determine that this worked and now you're going to be called, because where you're going to debate it. This is a law. This is requiring at this point here. I'm just going to share my screen or I'll bring it up here. I guess I haven't brought it up here. We're looking at HR 30 is the something about trafficking. This is the one about 200 more ATF agents. This is the one we were just looking at with like 7-day waiting period for all this list of stuff. This one is a license to buy ammunition. This one is requiring safe storage of firearms and ammunition. These are all at the federal level. To prohibit the firearm at a gun show. And then this last one is the Hearing Protection Act. So we have one offensive one that we can tell our representatives, you should vote for this. Now, we know that that's a non-effect, right? We know that it's almost not going to happen. However, there's use in doing it because if we get nothing, if this just lies dead, they know that they've exhausted us and we don't have the ambition or the energy or the ability to pursue aggressive stuff. All we can do is lay down once we're done. But this is all the stuff we're talking about coming at us in the first barrage. Since we don't know any of that, and the one thing we do know is that in the past, we haven't come together and said, Bob, you do this, and Chuck, you do that, and Sally, you do this, and Alexandria, you do this, and then boom, we're all going to come back together and we've successfully done it. Like that doesn't happen. We're not Borg and we haven't practiced enough. But what can we do? We can practice. We can get out there and get people who are like, I'm satisfied to shout at the sky, or I'm satisfied to say what I said last time, or I'm satisfied to sell you a fucking shirt. We could be like, hey, let's fuck that shit up already. Like, are you with us or are you just making money in this? I don't know. There's no answers to any of that. But
well, what do you think, G? I mean, you have far more experience in dealing with this. I mean, you have the years of wisdom. So
yeah, I think all we're missing is the 3-letter organizations or something equivalent, some authors, somebody who understands that it really is just going to take somebody like Amaj. Do you follow Amaj from Black Lives Matter? No, fucking with the hell I just. No, sorry.
I actually do on Instagram. I follow Maj on Instagram.
No, hold on. Maj from Black Guns Matter. I'm very sorry I said that.
Maj Torre.
Yeah, Maj, the real Maj, not bullshit. Whatever the hell I said was an accident. Black Guns Matter is legit, right? He's doing stuff, breaking the mold, doing his own thing and being very successful at it. He's leading the way. He's inspirational. So somebody like that is going to come along and do something. And what it's going to do is it's going to be the air traffic controller. I don't know if you were in here, if I was using that analogy recently or not, but what we need is the GOAs, the Second Amendment foundations, the FPCs, the other organizations at a federal level who will have the perspective, the 30,000-foot view to get together in a control tower and say, these are the objectives that need to be done, then watch. And as 100 people rush to the easy one, help divert traffic to the ones that need to be done. And the whole thing about knowing skill sets and shit, like this is a time for leadership. We don't need to be educated. We don't need to be inspired. We definitely need some intel and we need a bit of coordination. So what we need is leadership.
I'll say this. I don't mean to spread dissent among the allied forces, but right now the GOA is kind of on my shit list. The GOA has started to be really one of those far-right organizations.
Look, the Navy's a bunch of jerks, and they suck, and most of the time they whine about shit. But when we're at war, I'll get on a fucking boat and die for a fucking dude in the Navy or some chick in the Navy, right? I hear you. But when we're actually got my screen sharing, when we've got
not yet.
Boom. When we've got this one and 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 this one, right? And everything, 2 governors or 2 whatever the fuck happened in Georgia and all the rest. When we've got this, I'm gonna fucking work with whoever the hell needs to be worked with. Like I said, let's remember when this is all over and we're rolling back down our sleeves and we're looking for some iced tea because we're done. Then let's remember who the fuck didn't work and who the fuck was capitalizing. But I hear you. I understand. There's fucking assholes, man. There's some jerks out there, but at the moment, we got to just ignore the jerks, walk over the assholes, and fight with whoever weird fuck who normally wouldn't you thought would be fighting. And then when we're all done, first aid, after action, get ready for more. It's not going to end for at least 2 years, maybe 4, maybe even 8, maybe more than that. Maybe it's over, but what the fuck? We got to not be looking at this like, okay, let's play one deck of cards and then let's see if everybody gets, one game of cards and then let's see what, if everybody gets together, maybe we'll play chess then. Like, we don't get to choose almost anything except for our actions, our immediate actions and our attitudes.
Yeah, and Kobo, understand that all the way up to the senior members here and elsewhere, the frustrations are just as palpable. It's just like I count myself as a complete noob, and it's just like, seeing the perspective that's in front of me that's what part of my inspiration in carrying out what I'm seeing as my own individual missions. But feeling like you're disenfranchised or any of those other things, man, you sort of are, but it's, your best bet is just to double down and go with what and be prepared to learn a lot.
I don't think I feel disenfranchised by what the GOA's rhetoric, but I just don't take too kindly to it because I don't think it solves anything or adds people to our side, which is what we need.
Yeah. And sometimes if they are the ones that are in the control tower, I do feel some days that we're headed towards mid-air collisions, but
you gotta not okay, so you like lemonade and you hate seltzer water, but they make fucking seltzer water because somebody fucking likes it, right? Or whatever the hell mix, whatever the new shit you want in there. So yeah, I don't like a lot of stuff either, but that's because I don't get it, and then it's not singing to me. But if somebody who, I don't know, likes seltzer water and Eagle Claw or whatever the hell that drink is, and then drives around in a big ass 4x4 windsurfing, a bunch of stuff I don't do, and that's appealing to them. You know what I mean? Like, as long as they're not doing something dumb, like suggesting everybody sit around and not do anything, then worst case is we just learn from the chaos what skill sets there were and what abilities people had, and then organize it better. Is that the way I'm saying it? Like,
look at it from some of the new gun owners' perspectives that probably were left-leaning, especially given the political spectrum. If they see a gun organization that is just saying, yeah, these liberals, these leftists,
that's fine. And they have to also acknowledge that Trump would say something they don't like. And guess what? They are dumb.
And they don't support Trump either. They are very vehemently against Trump. So I don't see how this helps our side.
That's why I said that. So I'm also saying they're dumbasses if they didn't find the liberal gun club or something that would cater to their message, because it's not as though the gun owners of America is the only message. So I hear you. I'm not saying the gun owners have a great message. I don't even actually know what you're talking about specifically. I'm just saying that when we've got 7 mortars in the air, we heard them all launch out of tubes. We don't yet know where they're going to land or if they'll land, but we know that they're in the air. And we suspect that it's not the first barrage. Is this the time to start going, oh, I don't like the way your uniform is on? Or do you just make sure everybody gets into a bunker and you figure out in the aftermath what worked and what didn't, and like all the stuff I just said before? So I hear you. I'm just saying that if you're worried about the potential of a new gun owner getting offended by what the Gun Owners of America said today or yesterday, don't worry about that, man. Let the new gun owner figure that shit out. And if the new gun owner gets offended and clutches their pearls because the Gun Owners of America said Democrats, then we don't need that new gun owner. They are not a new gun owner. They're a new gun owner. They're not a new Second Amendment advocate. People who give a shit and understand that we're under attack aren't going to care that the person next to them who's, sheltered is wearing a uniform that's out of date, or that's, is an appropriate thing on their T-shirt or something. I don't know if I'm using good analogies, but
no, but you're making fair points, and I get that.
And the reason
I'm not in a state that I can actively, or even in expertise level, that I can actually make a coherent argument.
The only thing I'm saying is because we've sat around and we've been used as a mechanism. I keep saying, because I think that's the only way to say it. It's the way I've learned to say it. we've been used that way before, where we all stand around and go, "You're not doing it the way I like," or "You're not doing it perfectly enough for me," or "I don't like the way you said it." And then so we all stand around, and sometimes it still worked out, and because enough of us were standing there at, like in 13, we were able to prevent some stuff. But it certainly wasn't like we all worked together and nobody was offended, and at the end of it, something was accomplished. I mean, we're in the same boat because of nothing of that happened. We successfully resisted it somehow, and then by the time we all figured out that it was over, half the people had already left, and it was like, shit, what did we just do, and how do we remember what we did, and can we ever recreate it? And like I say, we never have been able to. We're still doing that. So that's all I'm saying, is that there's no way we're ever going to be like, okay, now I like what the GOA is saying, I'm on with them. Just let the GOA fucking do their thing. And if and I don't know if I'm saying it poorly for the tender new gun owner who has to be treated so nicely, but fuck them. If they can't get up to speed and figure out that when you're under mortar attack, somebody's going to swear or say something like, figure it out, then, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I get you, G. I get you, but I mean, at a certain point, you have to say, or you have to admit that if somebody's talking shit against you, saying, "Oh, you're just a superior, you're inferior."
At all. I'm not denying your point at all. That's why there is a liberal gun club, but the liberal gun club's been around since 2009. So if a liberal comes onto the scene and goes, "Oh, the only thing I could manage to research is this horrible thing that the GOA said against me," and whatever the specific is, obviously. Then you know what? They're feeble. And I don't think they're a liberal, because liberals don't tend to be feeble. They tend to scrutinize everything and read the label 4 times. So I suspect they already found the liberal gun club, and Walt can tell us the kind of stuff they complain about in there. But they complain about.
I wish he was here right now. He'd actually add some interesting perspective to this, and maybe, I mean, either help explain what I'm trying to say, or dispel what I'm trying to say.
No, I think I get what you're trying to say, and I'm not trying to as much disagree at all, really at all, because those are things that the GOA probably would be willing, because if they're at a national level and they want everybody's money, they want everybody to be included in their messages and stuff. So I wouldn't suggest that they're not able. They just haven't really been focused, because there's other groups that have, on getting a more universal message out there. So things like not saying the Democrats or not saying this and that have been beaten into us by a guy named Alan Corwin and some others at the Gun Rights Policy Conference and at AMCONs, the 2A media summits where they try to get people to work together. Unfortunately, everybody's human, and you listen to a message 5 times and then it takes that 6th time for it to click or something. So even though we all know not to say shooter, we say shooter instead of killer, right? We don't say, we say school shooting instead of atrocity, politically motivated, used a firearm because they know they'd be infamous. We say the gun, blah, blah, whatever shit. I don't like saying it. So, what I'm saying? None of us.
I'm just afraid we're losing more support by certain rhetoric.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Be afraid next year or 2 years from now when we can all rest, or be offended last year for damn sure. Because you're right, I'm not giving them a pass. I'm just saying, when we got mortars in the air, like when we're literally in the last few days before a massive onslaught, let's take that debate and have it in a more appropriate
but G,
time.
Listen to me. If we're killing morale of our own potential forces,
you're taking this way out of perspective. There's no possible way that any sizable number of liberal gun owners are at all offended by what Gun Owners of America could be putting out there to make them not be offended as gun owners of what's coming. I hear what you're saying. I just don't think it's a big enough issue to stop everything and let's address it before we figure some of this other stuff out.
Maybe you're right, man. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm seeing this from the wrong perspective, and I'm making mountains out of molehills. You're probably right, and
but
I'm going to shut up for a bit, because maybe I'm just coming at this at the wrong angle. So
it's the middle of the night and we're just BSing, and it's not like there's consequences. There's much just BSing, except that we get more experience. So I appreciate you saying it, because otherwise everybody just sits around. Then it is an echo chamber. We all just go like, "Oh yeah, that's right," and then nothing actually ever gets challenged or evolves. And I could be totally wrong. My theory, though, is that when we're fighting, don't worry about it and address it later. But like I say, I could be fucking totally wrong. And I don't think there's anybody, and that's another thing that, we all got to have sort of a little list, I think, to start keeping track of, because, failures of the community, the organizations, each other, the dynamic of the whole thing, that got us to this. Let's start keeping track of some of this, so when we do have a chance to breathe easy, we can eliminate any of this stuff from causing us trouble or our kids trouble in the future. And one of it is, why didn't the Gun Owners of America already be more woke and about how they might be alienating? And if that's the case, addressed it last year. Which is theoretical, blah, blah, blah. We were 3 hours and a half into it. We did 6 hours yesterday, so I don't want to get a bunch of people thinking we're in the habit of going all night all the time. But if you guys got something else, it's just the three of us at this point. Is Dead Horse still away?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I got to get going to bed soon.
Yeah, so why don't we wrap it up here? But thanks everybody for showing up. And we had a pretty active chat, and I think we solved everything. And we had fun doing it, I hope.
The 2A is everybody's right, and everybody needs to remember that, no matter if you're, coming into this chat as an anti-gunner or a pro-gunner, it's everybody's right.
That's a good way to end it.